Chapter 625. Half a Rule. Su Zhan coveted it. However, he also knew that it was unlikely that he would be able to obtain this half of the rule. After all, although there were not many powerful figures in the human race, he was not the only one. There were so many powerful figures. Su Zhan knew that he did not have any great achievements. Besides, Emperor Qin and Emperor Zhao might also need this half a rule. So, Su Zhan could only look. In terms of seniority, this half a rule would not fall on him. As for the others, hearing that, they also looked up at the mighty long river of rules in the sky. Rules? Everyone else looked confused. Without reaching the fourth level of the celestial being, one could not understand the existence of rules. In the cultivation world, there had not been a cultivator above the fourth level of the celestial being for many years, except for the Fuhai sect. In this case, even the two elders of the top sects did not know what the rules were, although they did not understand. But it did not stop them from feeling the greatness of the rules. They saw the confusion of the others. Su Zhan explained, which was rare. Above the fourth level of the celestial being, you start to understand the rules. Above the seventh level of the celestial being, you can gradually touch the rules. If you completely master a rule, you can become an immortal immediately. Boom. Become an immortal immediately. For words, it made the others jealous. Become an immortal. What was an immortal? In the past, many people did not know what a true immortal was. But it was different now. Xia Yi of the human race walked out of the void turbulence. His terrifying power had spread all over the eastern continent. That powerful figure was a true immortal, and a true immortal who had died long ago. But even so, he still suppressed the demons to the point where they could not even raise their heads. Even the two human emperors of the human race had not reached the true immortal realm. This proved that a true immortal was indeed a supreme realm. That is to say, if you can get this rule, you can become an immortal on the spot. A disciple swallowed and said with difficulty, becoming an immortal was a huge temptation. At this moment, Ling Huayu and Chu Shi were also staring at the rules in the sky. They were only cultivators of the god martial arts realm. He had yet to break through to the diviner realm, let alone understand the rules. Now, after hearing Su Zhan's words, they finally understood what the thing above their heads was. Dare I ask, Qin Emperor, if I am able to obtain that half of the rules, will I be able to become an immortal? Chu Shi's heart trembled as he looked at Qin Shujian and could not help but ask. Hearing this, the others also looked at Qin Shujian. They also wanted to know the answer. This included old battles. Although he understood that if he obtained that half of the law, his strength would definitely increase greatly, but whether he could become an immortal was still a question. Under everyone's gaze, Qin Shujian nodded slightly. That half of the law was left behind by the human Xia Yi. If you can master it, you can reach the true immortal realm. However, there was only half of the river of laws. By relying on this law to become an immortal, it would be much harder for him to forge a path forward than for other true immortals. It's possible that after becoming an immortal, he'll be stuck in the lower 3 levels of true immortal for the rest of his life. Half of the long river of laws was good. However, it also limited the cultivator's progress. To forge a new path in the long river of laws that had no path forward, it was even more difficult than mastering a law alone. However, when the others heard this, the look in their eyes changed completely. Their minds were completely filled with the words, true immortal. Su Zhan was also shocked. He could really become an immortal. Looking at everyone's eager eyes, Qin Shujian smiled slightly and did not talk about this matter. The long river of laws was placed there. However, it was like a museum. The treasures were here, but not everyone could take them. Qin Shujian was considering, should he just leave this long river of laws here and be done with it? In this way, everyone would be able to see the vast long river of laws as soon as they entered the Qian Yuan realm, which would have a great deterrent effect. It could also indirectly improve the status of the Qian Yuan realm. There were some thoughts in his mind. Qin Shujian interrupted the others' thoughts. This realm is called the Qian Yuan realm, and the human emperor's palace was built there. As he spoke, he pointed into the distance, where a towering tree stood erect. A powerful aura, it was emitted from it. Celestial Eldar. Su Zhan recognized Mu Yang's identity at first glance. He also knew that there was a Celestial Eldar in the Yuan sect, but he did not expect Qin Shujian to move him here. Qin Shujian said lightly, "The Qian Yuan realm will be where the Qian Yuan sacred ground will be located in the future. The human emperor's palace will be located in the center of the Qian Yuan realm. I will have to trouble Elder Su and the others to build the palace as soon as possible." "Don't worry, Emperor Qin. We will do our best." The three bowed and accepted the order. At the same time, they were also thinking about what Qin Shujian had just said. The Qian Yuan sacred ground. This Emperor Qin was going to build a sacred ground. The three of them looked at each other and came to the same shocking conclusion. However, it was also a matter of course. The Emperor Qin ruled the cultivation world. If it was in the form of a sect, it would definitely not be appropriate. As a result, it seemed normal to build a sacred ground. However, building a supreme sacred ground with a small world as the foundation, such a move, it was still surprising. Then, Qin Shujian took off the 5 storage rings in his hand and erased the ownership marks on them. "These are the materials for building the palace." Su Zhan took the 5 storage rings with a solemn expression. Then, the three of them went directly to the plain. Except for the imperfect rules, the Qian Yuan realm was no different from the outside world. And now the worlds were connected. The rules in the Qian Yuan realm were also temporarily perfected. As a result, there was no problem for cultivators to fly in the air. After the three of them left, Qin Shujian looked at Zheng Fang and the others and said, "First Elder, you can lead the disciples to find a place to stay in the Qian Yuan realm. There are many mountains in the Qian Yuan realm. You can find any one of them as the foundation." "I understand." Zheng Fang nodded slightly and then led all the elders and disciples away. In the same place, only Qin Shujian was left. The Qian Yuan realm covered an area of hundreds of thousands of miles. The mountains were also one after another. Some mountains were majestic. Some were short and flat. As the first batch of people to enter the Qian Yuan realm, Zheng Fang naturally wouldn't choose a place at random. He knew in his heart, if nothing unexpected happened, the Qian Yuan realm would be the real foundation of the Yuan sect in the future. Although, it wouldn't be long before the Yuan sect changed to the Qian Yuan sacred ground. But in fact, the Qian Yuan sacred ground was the Qian Yuan sacred ground, and the Yuan sect was the Yuan sect. According to Zheng Fang's guess, Qin Shujian might not really erase the existence of the Yuan sect. It was more likely that he would turn the Yuan sect into one of the many sects in the Qian Yuan sacred ground. Because of the Qian Yuan sacred ground, it was not a sacred ground of a certain sect, but a supreme existence above all sections. This sacred ground, it was established by the Qin emperor. Not any sect was qualified to establish a sacred ground. If there was no emperor, a sacred ground would not be a sacred ground. The spirit qi in the Qian Yuan realm is really rich. It is at least several times richer than when the main sect was in the past. Only a supreme master can create such a small world. Su Yuaming looked at the spirit qi clouds in the sky and couldn't help but sigh. This spirit qi, it was really rich. One had to be able to stay here for a long time. Even a mortal with average talent who had never been in contact with cultivation would not take long to break through from nothing to the real martial arts realm. Because from the basic martial arts realm to the real martial arts realm, in fact, it was a process of accumulating foundation. The requirements for aptitude and comprehension were not very high. As long as there were enough resources, then it was not a problem. Zheng Fang said in a deep voice, "The spirit qi in the Qian Yuan realm is indeed rich. But because of the need to ensure the rich spirit qi here, even if the sacred ground is established in the future, not many cultivators can stay here. In my opinion, the heaven list will be an important thing. You should take this opportunity to improve your strength. Otherwise, as a disciple of the Yuan sect in the future, if you can't enter the sacred ground, you will be a joke." Hearing this, the others also looked awe-inspiring. If the first elder hadn't mentioned it, they wouldn't have thought of this problem. That's right. The spirit qi in the Qian Yuan realm was rich. But because of the rich spirit qi, it could not accommodate too many cultivators. Not to mention anything else. Originally, the main sect assigned all the disciples to the branches, leaving only some elites in the main sect. This was evident. To put it bluntly, the main sect had to ensure that the spirit chi was abundant. It could not be absorbed by all the disciples for cultivation. In this way, only those outstanding disciples would be able to enjoy such good treatment. Zheng Feng said lightly, after the establishment of the Qianyuan sacred ground, all the sects in the world will be under the jurisdiction of the sacred ground. No, not only the sacred ground, but even the individual cultivators will also be under the jurisdiction of the sacred ground. So, the competition for places to enter the sacred ground will be even greater. The others' faces were even more ugly. It was difficult enough to compete with the people of their own sect. Now, they had to compete with the cultivators of the world. The difficulty was rising sharply. Su Yuanming looked at the disciples and said in a deep voice, "You are disciples of the Yuan sect. Among all the top sects in the Eastern continent, the Yuan sect is the most powerful and resourceful. As disciples, you have more resources than other sections. In this case, if you can't compete with your peers, it can only mean that you are trash. Since you are trash, you can't blame others." "Elder, don't worry. We will never lose to others," a disciple said loudly. In the crowd, Ningbo held his long sword and walked unhurriedly in the crowd. During this time, he had been practicing what Qin Shujian had given him. At the same time, his cultivation had also broken through from the first level of the true martial realm to the second level of the true martial realm. It could be said that this progress was very fast. However, because of his concentration on cultivation, Ningbo had not competed for the heaven list during this time. In addition, after breaking through to the true martial realm, his name was removed from the list of basic martial realm. So, as a result, Ningbo's name was no longer on the heaven list. The fourth level of the true martial realm is the internal invulnerability stage. Now the true martial realm list is basically filled with cultivators at the peak of the true martial realm. With my current strength of the second level of the true martial realm, it is still a bit difficult to be on the list. It is better to wait until I break through to the fourth level of the true martial realm and cultivate internal invulnerability stage. It will be much safer to compete for the list. Following in the crowd, Ningbo thought to himself, he would definitely be on the heaven list, not on the heaven list, without the blessing of the sect. And Ningbo also agreed with Zheng Feng's words. If there was a quota to enter the Qianyuan realm, then it was 100% likely that it would be chosen from the heaven list. At this time, Zheng Feng and the others also faintly focused their attention on Ningbo. Qin Shujian took in a disciple. Although he didn't deliberately publicize it, he didn't deliberately hide it either. So, these elders also knew that Ningbo was Qin Shujian's disciple. For this person who was regarded as the heir of the human emperor, these elders also wanted to see what kind of talent he had. It seems that there is nothing else to do next. Qin Shujian looked at the empty Qianyuan realm and suddenly found that there seemed to be nothing he could do. Through the core of heaven and earth, he could see that in the void outside, the black shadow that originally covered the Qianyuan realm had already left. Obviously, even the extraterritorial demons didn't want to gnaw on the tortoiseshell of the Qianyuan realm. They had the leisure time. It was better to go to other places and gnaw on other broken worlds. Extraterritorial void. Qin Shujian looked at the desolate void, which seemed to be devoid of life. His interest in this boundless void was piqued. But, thinking of his encounter in the extraterritorial void, Qin Shujian's heart was solemn. "Senior, what is the god-destroying gale that you mentioned earlier? The godslayer that was originally released." Now, he had returned to the sea of consciousness. In Qin Shujian's opinion, it was enough to come out occasionally to take a breather. There was no need to come out all the time. The godslayer took a breather for a while and was in a good mood. Hearing Qin Shujian's question, he didn't hesitate. The god-destroying gale is an omnipresent danger in the extraterritorial void. This gale doesn't affect the physical body of living creatures, but directly erodes the spiritual god. The spiritual god is weak. When the gale blows, the spiritual god will be extinguished like a candle in the wind. The living creature will only have a shell left, and then be replaced by the extraterritorial demons. Therefore, the extraterritorial gale is also called the god-destroying gale because its main function is to destroy the spiritual god. Moreover, the The God-destroying gale is all-pervasive. Even with your physical body, you can't really resist the erosion of the gale. Only after breaking through to the true immortal realm and transforming into an immortal body can you walk freely in the extraterritorial void. The extraterritorial void. It was an extremely mysterious place. Only true immortals. Only then were they qualified to explore this mystery. The Godslayer said, although the extraterritorial void is very dangerous, there are also many treasures. Not to mention other things. Just the star sulfur slurry that you soaked in is a product of the extraterritorial void. In addition, the extraterritorial demons are also a kind of treasure. Extraterritorial demons or treasures. Qin Shujian was startled. That shadow-like thing, he really couldn't associate it with a treasure. Of course. The god-slaying saber said angrily, don't look at how scary the extraterrestrial demons are. If you can kill them, they can also leave behind a kind of crystal. That kind of crystal can be directly absorbed by living beings. After absorbing it, living creatures can improve their spiritual god power. Below the celestial being realm, spiritual martial arts and divine martial arts mainly cultivate the spiritual god. Above the celestial being realm, the spiritual martial arts and divine martial arts become one. The strengthening of the spiritual god can also nourish the body. It can be said that the spiritual god is indispensable to living creatures. And the more powerful the spiritual god is, the more useful it is to the cultivator. The crystal formed by the extraterritorial demons can improve the spiritual god without any restrictions. It is a rare treasure. There were such benefits. Qin Shujian was shocked. If that was the case, although the extraterritorial demons were terrifying, the benefits were also great. Directly increasing the spiritual god. What kind of concept was that? In other words, if a cultivator of the spiritual martial arts or the divine martial arts could get such a crystal, then there would be almost no pause in these two realms. Although the spiritual martial arts and the divine martial arts didn't seem to be of much use now. But there was one thing to know. Any cultivator grew up from the bottom. Among them, many cultivators wasted dozens or even hundreds of years in the spiritual martial arts and the divine martial arts. If they could get the crystal formed by the extraterritorial demons, human cultivators could shorten their cultivation time by dozens or hundreds of years. Then it wouldn't be long before the human race could produce enough powerful cultivators. For a moment, many thoughts emerged in Qin Shujian's mind. He raised his head and looked at the sky. There was the long river of laws lying horizontally. But above the long river of laws was the outside of the Qian Yuan realm, the extraterritorial void, the extraterritorial demons. Treasure. Qin Shujian couldn't help but sigh. The Godslayer suddenly said, don't let your imagination run wild. Ordinary extraterritorial demons are fine, but if you encounter a powerful extraterritorial demon, then you will be food delivered to their door. In the past, many experts went to the extraterritorial void to hunt demons. Not to mention the harvest, many experts died. Don't play with fire. It will be troublesome if you get burned. Senior, don't worry. Binhuang is not that kind of impulsive person. Qin Shujian smiled. The Godslayer thought to himself, you are such an impulsive person. He temporarily extinguished his plans for the extraterritorial demons. Qin Shujian looked and took a step forward, appearing in the outside world. Liang Mountain Spirit Domain. Because of the commotion in Liang Mountain, all the cultivators entered Liang Mountain City through the teleportation gate. So when Qin Shujian appeared, he happened to see many cultivators gathering. Greetings, Emperor Qin. Everyone, please dispense with the formalities. Qin Shujian looked at the black mass of cultivators in front of him. There were many familiar faces among them. Then, he said in a clear voice, 1 month later, Binhuang will gather the experts of the cultivation world in the Qian Yuan realm for a meeting. All the sects of the eastern continent, from the ordinary domain to the spirit domain, must send people to participate. In addition, all the itinerant cultivators of the divine martial realm in the cultivation world can also come. When the time comes, I hope that all the sects will come on time and not let Binhuang down. After that, Qin Shujian took a step and left. As he was leaving, he sighed in his heart. It would be better if there was a carriage. Unfortunately, Qin Shujian didn't find a suitable demon to pull the carriage. As for the ox carriage, he didn't plan to do so for the time being. A green ox of the divine martial realm was embarrassing no matter where he went. In the ox demon cave, a certain green ox couldn't help but sneeze again. Its whole body trembled. What happened? The big green ox looked around blankly. Nothing happened. During this time, such things happened again and again, making him a little scared. In Liang Mountain City, all the cultivators were silent. Qin Shujian's words echoed in their hearts. Initially, these sects were only here to find an opportunity to pay a visit to the Qin Emperor. But now, it seemed, something big was going to happen. As for the cultivators who came after hearing the news, they were even more excited. Gathering all the sects in the world. It will definitely be a grand occasion. Unfortunately, I'm not a great cultivator of the divine martial realm. Otherwise, I would definitely go and participate. The itinerant cultivators and players were excited. The people of the sects were also shocked. Gathering all the sects in the world. The words had been said. They believed that it wouldn't take long for it to spread throughout the eastern continent. As for whether some sects would not come, there was no such possibility. Although Emperor Qin's words weren't too tough, but the meaning behind his words, everyone could understand. If they dared to not participate in the meeting, then they could only wait for Emperor Qin to settle the score. In front of him, even the top sects could be destroyed with a wave of his hand. In the cultivation world, but no one dared to disobey the emperor's orders. The world is changing again. Embark looked at the void where Qin Shujian was and let out a long sigh. If he didn't guess wrongly, Emperor Qin's words were the actions he took against the cultivation world after he became the emperor. Embark had long thought that such a day would come. So when it really came, he wasn't too surprised. The world was going to change, but it wouldn't collapse. Traceless sect was following Emperor Qin's footsteps. Even if the world was going to change, it wouldn't affect Traceless sect. Unless, Traceless sect would only be affected if Emperor Qin fell and a new emperor took over. But before that, Traceless sect was stable. Qi Tianqing, who was on the side, was also silent. Embark's words gave him some ideas. Without Sihan Hai, although covering C sect was still not weak, it wasn't qualified to suppress the cultivation world in East Pattern Prefecture. Under the pressure of the sections, covering C sect was also in a difficult situation. If there was a reform in the cultivation world, maybe it would be a good thing for covering C sect. The current situation has reached the worst point. It can't get any worse. It's better to break and then rebuild and see if there is a chance for a new life. Qi Tianqing thought to himself. Then he looked at Embark and said with a smile, "Brother Yin, do you know what Emperor Qin's plan is?" Although this old man has some friendship with Emperor Qin, he is already the human emperor. I cannot say anything about him. However, according to my understanding of Emperor Qin, this meeting will definitely be a good thing for the entire cultivation world. Embark said with a faint smile. At the same time, he said in his heart, but it may not be the case for other sections. Qi Tianqing nodded and said, Emperor Qin cares about the human clan. What he does is naturally to benefit the human clan and the cultivation world. In this case, let's wait patiently. We will see what will happen in a month. You and I are not in a hurry. Haha, that's right. Embark laughed heartily. Immediately, the people of the two sects returned to the inn. However, someone had already spread the news of what had happened today. In less than 2 days, the entire cultivation world in the eastern continent had already received the news. Falling Moon Mansion. Flying Crane Sect. Sect Master Qin should be called Emperor Qin now. I really didn't expect that he had reached such a level. It's really unexpected. In the main hall, Bai Hengzi's face was full of admiration. For Qin Shujian, he had always thought highly of him, but he never thought that he could grow to such a level. In just a few years, from a cultivator in the spiritual martial realm to the current emperor of the human clan. Such strength and growth speed. It was beyond anyone's imagination. An elder cupped his hands and said, Sect Master, what do you plan to do now? Nobody dares to go against Emperor Qin's orders. Bai Hengzi glanced at him, shook his head and said, I will leave for the Liang Mountain Spirit Domain tomorrow. By then, I will leave the sect's affairs to you. Yes. Many elders of the Flying Crane sect nodded in response. Emperor Qin's meeting this time might really give the Flying Crane sect a chance to soar. Bai Hongzhe felt emotional. In the past few years, the Flying Crane sect had benefited from the protection of the Origin sect and developed well. Although there were no experts in the spiritual martial realm, that was also because of the suppression of the true dominion. Bai Hongzhe estimated that he would be able to go to the spirit domain to break through after a few more days of training. Zhongzhou Imperial City. Qin Shujian looked at the majestic city in front of him with rising yellow clouds and felt a little emotional. This was the second time he had come to the Imperial City. The first time, he had come as a reinforcement because of the rebellion of the feudal lords. At that time, Qin Shujian had been a celestial being. Although his strength was not bad, he had not been able to do much when the feudal lords had besieged the Imperial City. However, this time, he had come as the human emperor. In the Imperial City, there were many restrictions. However, these restrictions were useless in front of Qin Shujian now. He took a step forward. Qin Shujian had already disappeared. In the Imperial City, many of the experts did not notice that someone had entered at some point in time. In the Imperial City Palace, Emperor Zhao was sitting in the Imperial Garden. Suddenly, he felt something and looked up in a certain direction. Then, he said to the eunuch beside him, "Emperor Qin has arrived. Prepare the tea." Yes. Although the old eunuch was confused, he still did as he was told. The moment he left, there was another person in the pavilion of the Imperial Garden. Emperor Zhao smiled faintly and said, "Emperor Qin, you are in Zhongzhou. What's the matter?" Qin Shujian had barged into the Imperial City without permission. He did not show any strange expression. Ben Huang is here to borrow a fragment of the sky-reaching mirror from Emperor Zhao. Qin Shujian went straight to the point. While they were talking, he also looked around the Imperial Garden. In the end, he got this result. Although the Imperial Garden was good, it was still much worse than his Qinyuan realm. Emperor Zhao said, "Is it because of that small world?" Emperor Zhao is well informed. Qin Shujian was slightly surprised. How long had it been? The news of the small world had reached the Imperial City of Zhongzhou. Emperor Zhao smiled faintly and said, "Ben Huang is the ruler of the great Zhao after all. I have the ability to gather information. Let's get back to the point. Ben Huang still has a fragment of the sky-reaching mirror. Ben Huang can even give it to Emperor Qin. But the problem is, what can Emperor Qin give in exchange?" Hearing this, Qin Shujian had a strange look on his face. He had always been the one to say this to others. This was the first time someone had said this to him. Emperor Zhao's words put him in a difficult situation. No matter what, the sky-reaching mirror was a fragment of a top treasure. It was impossible to exchange it with something ordinary. But speaking of precious treasures, to be honest, Qin Shujian didn't have many treasures except for Cold Mountain City, the Heavenly List, and the Godslayer. As for ordinary Taoist treasures, the great Zhao certainly didn't lack them. And ordinary Taoist treasures, he couldn't exchange them for a fragment of such a treasure. Do I have to exchange it with the bow of heaven and earth? Qin Shujian suddenly thought of the bow of heaven and earth that he had put away. This bow, it didn't seem to be of much use lately. But as soon as this thought came to his mind, he extinguished it. Although the bow of heaven and earth was useless, but he still had some feelings for it. Emperor Qin was not the kind of person who would get rid of the donkey after it had outlived its usefulness. Besides, the bow of heaven and earth knew many of his secrets. He wouldn't feel at ease if he gave it to others. After thinking for a long time, Qin Shujian said helplessly, "Emperor Zhao, just tell me what you want. If Ben Huang can do it, I will try my best to satisfy you." A complete corpse of an emperor. Impossible. Qin Shujian directly objected. He must be crazy. For a fragment of a treasure, you want the corpse of an emperor. Do you really think an emperor is a cabbage? Moreover, an emperor was not weak. In his own territory, he had a great increase in strength. If he really wanted to make a move, Qin Shujian was not 100% confident that he could kill him. More importantly, he also needed the corpse of an emperor. It was not worth it to exchange it for a fragment of the sky-reaching mirror. Emperor Zhao said calmly, Those in the 10th level of the celestial being realm are emperors, and those in the nirvana realm are also emperors. Ben Huang doesn't need the corpse of a nirvana realm emperor. Just give me one in the 10th level of the celestial being realm. If there is no emperor in the 10th level of the celestial being realm, then Ben Huang needs the corpse of a flood dragon in the 9th level of the celestial being realm, the complete one. An emperor in the 10th level of the celestial being realm. The corpse of a flood dragon in the 9th level of the celestial being realm. Qin Shujian only hesitated for a moment before choosing the latter. Okay, Ben Huang will give you the corpse of a flood dragon in the 9th level of the celestial being realm within 3 years. However, Ben Huang needs the fragment of the sky-reaching mirror now. No problem. Ben Huang still trusts your reputation. Emperor Zhao seemed to have expected it. With a wave of his hand, he took out a fragment of the bronze mirror. Seeing the fragment of the bronze mirror, Qin Shujian did not stand on ceremony and put it away. By the way, many dragons have died recently. Are there any experts in the 9th level of the celestial being realm? He suddenly thought of something and looked at Emperor Zhao. If the dragons did not have the 9th level of the celestial being realm, then it was none of his business. As the top clan of the Demon Emperor, the dragons have never lacked experts. Although a few experts have died now, there are still a few old ones in the clan. Ben Huang is not sure if there are any great saints in the 10th level of the celestial being realm, but there must be some in the 9th level of the celestial being realm. Emperor Zhao had done a lot of intelligence on the demon clan. Hearing that, Qin Shujian nodded slightly. That was good enough. Then, he got up and left. The purpose of his visit, he just wanted a fragment of the sky-reaching mirror. That was all. Since he had achieved his goal, there was no need to stay here anymore. Ben Huang will take his leave now. After that simple sentence, Qin Shujian had already disappeared without a trace. At the same time, the old eunuch happened to serve tea. Emperor Zhao waved his hand and said, "He's gone. Take it away." The old eunuch looked confused, but he still bowed and said, "Yes." Then, he took the tea away obediently. Outside the imperial city, Qin Shujian did not use the teleportation gate. Instead, he relied on his own strength to cross thousands of rivers and mountains and head toward Baiyun Mansion, a flood dragon at the 9th level of the celestial realm. What does he want to do with it? The flood dragon's blood is a foundational material. Could it be that Zhao Emperor is planning to use the flood dragon's blood to build his foundation again after having a few more children? Qin Shujian guessed maliciously. Harem of 3,000 beauties. That was not a joke. It was not impossible for a little prince to appear. However, Qin Shujian felt a little strange when he thought that Emperor Zhao, who was almost 10,000 years old, had a son who was only a few years old. Western Prefecture, the Demon Clan's secret realm. Since the secret realm was torn apart by Xia Yi, the Demon Clan experts had been trying their best to repair it. One had to know, the secret realm was left behind by the ancient Demon Clan's true immortal. Although it was called a secret realm, it was actually a powerful small world. To repair such a small world, unless a true immortal appeared, it was almost impossible for other cultivators to do it. Therefore, the so-called cultivators of the Demon Clan experts just turned their vital essence into spiritual qi and activated the Demon Clan's secret realm to absorb energy to reach the point of self-healing. The news of the Demon Emperor's recovery did not spread, but because of the Demon Clan's large-scale attack on the Black Rock Condor clan, it aroused the fear of many clans. It also caused some clans to have thoughts in their hearts and directly extinguish them. So during this period, the Demon Clan was much calmer. As for the Demon Emperor, he had also entered seclusion and was looking for an opportunity to break through. At this moment, there were 2 cracks in the Demon Clan's secret realm. One was the entrance to the secret realm that connected heaven and earth, and the other was the crack at the bottom of the secret realm. Xia Yi's finger. It directly started from the entrance and pierced through the entire Demon Clan's secret realm. So, these Demon Clan experts did not need to repair 1 crack, but 2. 1 head and 1 tail. 1 high and 1 low. Just as these almighty figures were repairing the secret realm, there were some strange fluctuations in the crack at the bottom of the ground. One of the Demon Clan almighty figure's hands paused slightly, and his gaze fell on the crack. his expression uncertain. Do you guys feel that something is wrong? What's wrong? The powerful figures of the demon clan around him all looked at him. That demon clan almighty figure looked at the crack, frowned, and said, "It seems that the crack has become darker. Turtle Saint, your old eyes must be blurry. Behind the crack is an endless void. It was originally black. How could it become darker?" One of the almighty figures shook his head and laughed. "Maybe I saw wrongly." Turtle Saint shook his head and did not think too much about this matter. During this period of time, he had been doing his best to repair the secret realm. His vital essence continued to be consumed, and now he was already a little tired. Maybe it was really an illusion. Turtle Saint comforted himself, but he looked at the pitch-black crack, and there was still a strange feeling lingering in his heart. It was obviously a black void, but the feeling it gave him, it was a little different. This feeling made Turtle Saint subconsciously reduce the speed of repairing the secret realm, and then his attention fell on the crack in the secret realm. God knows when darkness quietly spread. Turtle Saint's hair stood on end. Chapter 626. There's an enemy invasion. Turtle Saint immediately sounded the alarm. Those who could cultivate to become almighties. None of them were fools. With a furious roar, the Turtle Saint unleashed a terrifying attack that bombarded the crack. Boom! The secret realm shook. It was just an earth-shattering attack. The spreading darkness was not stopped. It still rose from the crack and then spread toward the secret realm. At this moment, the darkness spread very quickly. In less than a breath's time, it had already left the crack and swept toward Turtle Saint. What the hell is this? Turtle Saint was shocked and angry. Even an almighty expert wouldn't be able to withstand his attack so easily. But the attack blasted over. It was like a clay ox entering the sea. There was no fluctuation at all. It was so strange. Turtle Saint was horrified. At this moment, the fluctuation of the Almighty's attack had already attracted the attention of the other experts in the secret realm. When the surrounding Almighties saw the spreading darkness, they immediately reacted. Terrifying vital essence erupted. The darkness seemed to have no substance. It easily passed through the vital essence and then swallowed a monster saint. The darkness covered. That monster saint completely disappeared. Only a horrified scream could be heard from within. What is this? Seeing a monster saint being swallowed by the darkness without any resistance, Turtle Saint's eyes showed uncontrollable fear. The monster saint that was swallowed. Its strength was not weaker than his. At this moment, an older monster saint looked at the spreading darkness. Suddenly, an idea flashed in his mind. He immediately shouted in horror, "Extraterritorial demon. That's the legendary extraterritorial demon. Don't use vital essence to attack. Use the rules. Otherwise, you won't be able to hurt the extraterritorial demon." As soon as he finished speaking, that monster saint had already summoned the rules. The shadow of the long river came. It blasted toward the darkness. At that moment, the boundless darkness let out a shrill roar. It seemed to have suffered some damage. Even the speed of its spread weakened a lot. Seeing this, the other monster saints did not have time to think too much. They all used their rule power to attack. Boom! A great battle broke out. The invasion of the extraterritorial demon was completely unexpected by the other monster saints. For many monster saints, they did not even know about the existence of the extraterritorial demon. After all, such a thing. It was really too ancient. For 200,000 years, no cultivator had been able to break through to the true immortal realm. Those true immortals who had survived were no different from dead. This led to this. No cultivator could leave this world, not to mention a chance encounter with the extraterrestrial demons. There are records about this, and it was passed down from ancient times. However, there was one thing to know. Not every expert was cultured and knowledgeable. As such, the extraterrestrial demons were an unknown terror to most demon sages. Extraterritorial demons. Damn it! Why are there extraterritorial demons invading at this time? The martial sage's expression was extremely solemn. He was the veteran demon saint who had just revealed the dark identity. Even though he was unable to reach Celestial Realm Tendan due to his lack of talent, He was still a 9-dan celestial realm expert. But even so, the old demon saint was extremely solemn when facing the extraterritorial fiend, because he knew even a true immortal would have to retreat in the face of powerful outworld fiends. As for the demon saint that had been swallowed by the darkness, the martial sage had already labeled him as dead. Boom, boom. The battle broke out. The extraterritorial fiend invaded. Many demon saints summoned the long river of laws to descend and contain the extraterritorial fiend at the entrance of the crack. Bang! Not long after, the darkness dispersed. The eyes of the demon saint that had been swallowed by the darkness turned completely black, and faint black patterns appeared on his body. In the next moment, the extraterritorial demon saint disappeared on the spot. A great fear rose in the turtle saint's heart. Without thinking, he transformed into his original body. A gigantic tortoise was suppressing the void. Immediately after, the extraterritorial demon saint's attacks landed on the shell's back and countless sparks erupted. However, he was unable to break through its defense. He has been parasitized by the extraterritorial fiend. Kill. The martial sage roared and commanded some of the demon saints to attack the extraterritorial demon saint. Rumble, thunder exploded. The thunder saint flew over, and the long river of laws bombarded. Wrapped in endless thunder power, it directly exploded in the crack. Crackle. The thunder was like silver dancing wildly. The long river of laws raged. The extraterritorial fiend let out a shrill scream. All the darkness that had spread over retreated. Immediately after, a giant ape stepped on the void and pinched the extraterritorial demon saint with one palm. The terrifying power caused the demon saint's body to explode. Roar. The extraterritorial demon saint let out a strange roar. Endless darkness spread out from the black pupils. In the blink of an eye, it was attached to the heaven saint's arm and then spread at an extremely fast speed. Damn it! The heaven saint's expression changed. Without thinking, he cut off his arm. Immediately, the vast long river of laws descended and bombarded the darkness that covered his arm. Terrifying power. It caused the darkness to let out a shrill scream. Inch by inch, the darkness was destroyed. Even the broken arm was turned into powder under this power. At the moment when everything was destroyed, a resplendent crystal fell out of it. The heaven saint's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He grabbed the crystal. At this moment, more darkness spread out from the crack. Even with the help of 2 demon race great saints, there was still no way to control the situation. The long river of laws bombarded, but it caused the darkness to roll. Only the gray long river of laws was rendered with the color of darkness. The martial sage's expression changed. Just as he was about to react, endless darkness had already surged wildly, wanting to swallow him. Save me! The martial sage screamed in horror. The other demon saints immediately looked over. They only saw a flood dragon rolling in the darkness. It seemed to be resisting the erosion of the darkness. Then, no matter how it resisted, its dragon body was still covered by the darkness bit by bit. Not good. The 2 demon race great saints saw this scene and their expressions changed greatly. Without thinking, the 2 of them attacked at the same time. The martial sage could not die. The dragons were losing more and more powerful beings. If the martial sage died, the demon king would definitely go crazy. The demon king would be furious. Even a great saint would not be able to bear it. The other demon saints also thought of this point. Then, their faces turned pale. Immediately after, they attacked at the same time, wanting to save the martial sage. Who would die? Even the martial sage could not die. If the dragons lost another level 9 heavenly being, the demon king would not let them go. And in the demon race's secret territory, a few demon saints had been killed by the extraterritorial demons. It was also an extremely embarrassing thing. It was reasonable. Even the martial sage could not die. However, the bombardment of the power of many rules only managed to disperse the darkness a little. The moment these attacks dissipated, the darkness spread at an even faster speed. In an instant, it completely covered the martial sage. Roar! The martial sage looked up to the sky and let out a final sorrowful roar. The light in his huge eyes disappeared and turned completely black. In the heavenly demon temple, the demon king, who had been isolated from the outside world and was in seclusion, suddenly opened his eyes at this moment. Just now, he felt that the powerful beings of the dragons had died. The sudden change. It directly woke the demon king up from his cultivation. After he woke up, he immediately sensed the movements in the demon race's secret territory. Extraterritorial demons. You're asking for death. The demon king was furious. A terrifying aura exploded from the heavenly demon temple. The powerful demon race beings who were fighting with the extraterritorial demons immediately darkened their faces. The demon king had come out. The worst outcome was unavoidable. A man in a dragon robe suddenly appeared, and a vast aura spread out. My emperor. Looking at the expressionless demon king, the powerful beings were terrified. However, the demon king ignored them. Instead, he looked at the crack in the secret territory and the martial sage who had been completely corroded by the extraterritorial demons. Extraterritorial demons. The demon king's eyes were terrifyingly cold. He had died. Another powerful being of the dragons had died. It was a martial sage who was at the 9th level of the celestial being, no matter how good his cultivation was. At this moment, he could not control the anger in his heart. The heavenly demon temple rose from the ground. The demon king held the heavenly demon temple with one hand and suppressed the extraterritorial demons. Boom! A terrifying force spread. The darkness that had invaded the demon race's secret territory melted away like snow meeting sunlight. A large number of extraterritorial demons appeared in the void and wanted to rush into the demon race's secret territory. However, the heavenly demon temple suppressed the crack. These extraterritorial demons had no way of breaking through Zubing's suppression. Roar! The martial sage swung his tail and broke through 2 demon sages. Then, he went towards another crack in the secret territory. The extraterritorial demons also had intelligence. Now that the demon king had appeared, he was obviously an invincible martial sage. If he stayed where he was, he would definitely die. As such, this extraterritorial demon directly controlled the martial sage's body and left the demon race's secret territory. A 9th-level celestial being was determined to leave. It wouldn't be easy to stop them. Moreover, when they fought against the extraterritorial demons earlier, all the demon sages were exhausted. Even the heavenly sage had lost an arm. In this situation, what could they use to stop the martial sage? At this moment, the demon king was controlling the heavenly demon temple to suppress the crack in the secret territory. He could not free himself to deal with the martial sage. Just like that, the demon sages could only watch as the martial sage escaped. Seeing this scene, the demon king said coldly, "All the heavenly humans and demons, use all your strength to repair the crack in the secret territory. Then, inform the other clans and let them kill the extraterritorial demon that escaped." It had taken over the martial sage's body. In his opinion, the extraterritorial demon would definitely die. But before this, the first thing to do was to repair the crack in the secret territory. Otherwise, it would attract more and more powerful extraterritorial demons. Even the demon king was not confident that he could deal with them. In the secret territory, when the other members of the demon race saw this scene, a sense of helplessness rose in their hearts. They did not know when it started. The demon clans that dominated the western region had hit a wall everywhere. In the past 10,000 years, not a single powerful cultivator had died one after another in a short period of time. This was an unlucky year. This was the thought that emerged in the hearts of some demon clans. The battle in the demon race's secret territory. The fluctuations were not small at all. Especially now that the demon race's secret territory was broken, there was no way to completely hide all the fluctuations. Some of the powerful cultivators of the nearby clans also noticed this scene. What are the demon clans up to now? This was the thought that emerged in the minds of all the cultivators. During this period of time, the demon clans would always come up with some trouble every few days. This caused the clans that lived near the demon clans to feel a lot of pressure. If not for the fact that there were fixed territories in each of the 4 major continents, these clans, they would have moved away long ago. After all, moving away was not a troublesome matter. At most, they would bring the entire secret territory with them. Roar! An earth-shattering dragon roar was heard. 100,000 feet long flood dragon flew out from the demon race's secret territory and went straight into the sky. A powerful cultivator said in shock and doubt, "Is that a martial sage? Why does it feel like something is wrong?" The martial sage was a top cultivator in the 9th level of the celestial being realm. There were not many people in the western region who did not know him. However, what shocked these powerful cultivators was that the martial sage in front of them was covered in black lines. Even his pupils had turned black and his entire body exuded an ominous aura. Such a change. This made these cultivators feel anxious and doubtful. Rules. There are so many auras of rules. I want to devour them. No, that powerful cultivator is still here. I can't stay for too long. Let's retreat first and find a chance to devour them in the future. The martial sage's pitch-black eyes swept across the other powerful cultivators hidden in the void. Then, his body broke through the void and left. Those powerful cultivators who were swept by his eyes. An uncontrollable sense of fear surged in their hearts. At that moment, all the hair on their bodies stood on end. Just as the martial sage left, the Thunder Sage walked out of the demon race's secret territory and looked at the void in front of him. Under the orders of the Demon King, all the subordinate tribes are to kill the martial sage and bring his body back to the demon race. The demon race will reward you handsomely. Also, the martial sage has been parasitized by an extraterritorial demon. If it is allowed to grow, it will cause endless trouble in the western region. Everyone, please take care of yourselves. After saying these 2 sentences, the Thunder Sage returned to the demon race's secret territory. In the outside world, many powerful cultivators were left looking at each other. Killing a martial sage. An extraterritorial demon. Speaking of which, what is an extraterritorial demon? It can even parasitize a powerful cultivator like the martial sage. Isn't it too strong? A powerful cultivator said doubtfully. The other cultivators were also at a loss. An extraterritorial demon. It was really unfamiliar. However, not all cultivators were ignorant. A powerful cultivator said in a trembling voice, "An extraterritorial demon is a product of the extraterritorial void. It lives by devouring rules and parasitizing cultivators at the same time. It is said that the powerful extraterritorial demon can even kill a true immortal. It is extremely terrifying." What? It can even kill a true immortal. The other powerful cultivators who knew nothing about the extraterritorial demon were all stunned. Next, uncontrollable fear appeared on their faces. If it could kill a true immortal, such an existence would be invincible in the western region. No, not only in the western region, but even in the 4 great continents, it would be invincible. We must not let that extraterritorial demon grow. That's right. Kill it. We must kill it. These powerful cultivators were going crazy. They were afraid of the extraterritorial demon, but they were also angry at the demon race for releasing such a terrifying existence. However, these cultivators did not have the time to blame the demon race. Instead, they hurriedly gathered their men and prepared to kill the martial sage. At the same time, the news of an extraterritorial demon possessing a martial sage of the demon race and escaping spread like wildfire throughout the western region and even the other 3 continents. In the Qian Yuan world, Qin Shujian had been looking for a secluded mountain to cultivate for the past few days. To him, the most exciting thing was to see his life force increase on the attribute panel every day. Then, he would see his battle strength increase slowly on the heaven list. Although this increase could only be described as the speed of a turtle compared to his life force. But no matter what, a rise was a rise. There was no doubt about it. From the divine martial chapter to the divine chapter, then from the 5th level to the 6th level of the celestial being, if nothing goes wrong, it should be around 300 billion to 400 billion. With the current growth rate of my life force, I should be able to accumulate enough life force to increase my cultivation level in about 4 months. Observing the changes in his body, Qin Shujian thought to himself, to be able to increase from the 5th level of the celestial being to the 6th level of the celestial being. He made an estimation. His basic battle strength could reach about 50,000. At that time, it should not be a problem to fight the Demon Emperor and the Divine Emperor. However, if a Nirvana Realm cultivator suddenly unleashed his power and had the highest battle strength, he might not be able to defeat him. It's not that easy to unleash one's power. I've fought with a few Nirvana Realm cultivators, but I've never seen anyone unleash their power. The probability of this so-called peak being able to match a true immortal is too low. Qin Shujian shook his head slightly. If he could encounter a Nirvana Realm cultivator who unleashed his power, then he would be really lucky. At this moment, the communication jade token in the heaven list vibrated. Qin Shujian did not even need to take out the heaven list to read the information inside. After a while, his expression was a little strange. Senior, is the growth of the extraterrestrial demons fast? If an extraterrestrial demon that can parasitize a 9th level celestial being, how long will it take to grow to the level of threatening a true immortal? It depends on the situation. The extraterrestrial demons live by laws. The more laws they devour, the stronger they become. However, it's not easy to match a true immortal. According to what you said, the extraterrestrial demons should be around the 10th level celestial being. If they want to match a true immortal, they can forget about it without 1,000 years. The god-slaying saber replied indifferently. How could a true immortal be so easy to reach? Even if it was an extraterrestrial demon, 1,000 years was a short time to go from the 10th level celestial being to a true immortal. Hearing that, Qin Shujian heaved a sigh of relief. In that case, I can ignore it for the time being. A 10th level celestial being extraterrestrial demon was not a threat to him. The one that was a real threat to him, it was an extraterrestrial demon whose strength was comparable to a true immortal. But now it seemed that extraterrestrial demon would have to go through at least 1,000 years of hard work before it could reach the level of threatening a true immortal. To this, Qin Shujian decided to ignore it for the time being. However, he also mourned for the demons. Another mighty figure had died, and it was a flood dragon. It was really tragic. It's a pity that the flood dragon that was parasitized by the extraterrestrial demon has gone somewhere. Otherwise, I would have killed it and returned the favor to Emperor Zhao. Qin Shujian shook his head regretfully. Afterward, he took out the fragment of the heaven-reaching mirror from the heaven list. Since it was a fragment, it was destined that the shape of the laws would not be very nice. Qin Shujian took out some of the remaining materials and began casting on the spot. The heaven and earth furnace was ignited. The materials melted one after another. 3 days later, the thunder tribulation struck down. After a day, the thunder clouds in the Qian Yuan realm quietly dissipated. In the mountain peak, in front of Qin Shujian, there was a bronze mirror that was as tall as a person. Well, you were cast from the fragment of the heaven-reaching mirror. Let's call you the heaven-reaching mirror. Immediately, he had kept the mirror on the heaven roll. If I seal the Qian Yuan realm, will there be no thunder tribulation? Looking at the dark land around him, Qin Shujian thought of a problem. The thunder tribulation came from the laws of heaven and earth. If there were no laws, then there would be no thunder tribulation. Godslayer said, "You can say that, but the Qian Yuan realm is already connected to heaven and earth. Even if you seal the secret realm, the power of the laws can still seep in and you can't avoid the thunder tribulation. Unless you seal the Qian Yuan realm and separate it from heaven and earth, then you can get rid of the restrictions of the laws and no longer be troubled by the thunder tribulation. Separate from heaven and earth, a sealed small world could not be troubled by the laws of the thunder tribulation." Qin Shujian thought about Godslayer's words and suddenly had an idea. You once said that the true immortals from hundreds of thousands of years ago were able to survive until now because they were sealed when they fell. What kind of seal is this? Yi Qingtang asked with a frown. If a true immortal is placed in a completely independent small world, can he avoid the punishment of the laws? Hearing this, Godslayer said in a deep voice after a moment, "You are very smart. There are 2 answers. The first one is what kind of seal it is. I am not very clear about it because that kind of seal is the self-seal of a true immortal. In addition, You have to use the protection of a supreme treasure to block the perception of the laws. As for the second answer, I can tell you clearly that it is possible to do that. Hearing this, Qin Shujian's expression was also solemn. Godslayer said, "But such a small world must never come into contact with the power of the laws of heaven and earth. Just like your ancient immortal ring, it must be sealed in the form of a ring. In fact, this method is also a kind of seal. The former is sealed in a certain place, the latter is sealed in a small world. No matter what kind of seal it is, as long as they walk out of the small world and are sensed by heaven and earth, they will be punished by the laws of the thunder tribulation. And the stronger the true immortal is and the longer he hides, the more terrifying the thunder tribulation will be." In ancient times, there was once a 9th-level immortal who did this. He hid in a small world for millions of years and only came out when his race was in danger. In the end, it attracted the thunder tribulation. That 9th-level immortal was instantly annihilated as soon as he came out. Not even his bones were left. In Godslayer's opinion, this method is no different from death. 9th-level immortal. Qin Shujian took a deep breath. He knew that the 9th-level immortal Godslayer was talking about was not generally referring to the entire true immortal realm, but a single one of the realms. The upper 3 levels. A 9th-level true immortal. It was rumored that he was a supreme powerhouse comparable to the Emperor of Heaven. Qin Shujian said in shock, "Is the thunder tribulation really that powerful? The power of the laws is much more terrifying than you think. The thunder tribulation you encountered is just the tip of the iceberg of the thunder tribulation. The truly terrifying thunder tribulation of the laws. Even a 9th-level immortal is an ant. Heaven and earth have their own order. The lifespan of a true immortal is fixed. If you dare to deceive heaven and earth, you will die. You won't even have the chance to reincarnate in the future." Godslayer said coldly, "The laws are not so easy to deceive. If every true immortal sealed themselves when they were about to die, and then suddenly released at the critical moment, causing great destruction, heaven and earth would have been in chaos. So, the stronger the true immortal, the longer the seal. The more terrifying the thunder tribulation is, the more terrifying it is." Hearing this, Qin Shujian was already deep in thought. At first, he was worried that there might be even more ancient true immortals hidden in the various races. After all, it was not easy to open a small world, but it was not difficult either. If he really opened a bunch of small worlds and hid true immortals who were about to die in them, and when they were all released at the critical moment, his enemies would probably cry. But now, this worry is unnecessary. If there really were true immortals who were older than 200,000 years, they would be killed by the thunder tribulation as soon as they came out, except for giving away their heads. There is no other use. Thinking of this, Qin Shujian finally let out a sigh of relief. There is no other way. After 1,000,000 years, the human race is really too weak. Their foundation is almost completely exhausted. If there is really a large number of true immortals in the alien race, and release them at the critical moment, to put it bluntly, the human race may be destroyed on the spot. Now that he heard Godslayer's words, Qin Shujian knew that his worry was actually unnecessary. Then, Qin Shujian went back to cultivating. In the plains, the 3 gurus were in full swing building the human emperor's palace. Although the human emperor's palace is a palace, it is definitely not built like an ordinary palace. According to Qin Shujian's request, the human emperor's palace must be a powerful spirit artifact, or even a Tao artifact. Unfortunately, if they build a huge Tao artifact, with the strength of the 3 gurus, they are not 100% sure that they can succeed. In addition to building a Tao artifact, they need innate embryos. Now that the great calamity of the demon abyss is approaching step by step, it would be disadvantageous to the eastern continent if they activate the regional derivation too many times. Therefore, Qin Shujian also temporarily gave up the idea of building the human emperor's palace into a Tao artifact. Besides, he is also worried that Su Zhan and the others will fail. A failure. Not to mention the loss of materials, it will also waste a lot of time. These words, Qin Shujian did not say it directly, After all, it would be a little hurtful. His true essence was vast. The heaven and earth furnace was ignited. Materials are thrown in one after another and then smelted. This is the casting. It is mainly Sujan, the other two. Because Sujan is a mighty figure of the 7th level of the celestial being realm, the other two are cultivators of the divine martial arts realm. There is a huge gap in cultivation. Although the casting does not only depend on the cultivation level, but the cultivation level is low, it is destined that it will not be able to forge a powerful divine weapon, especially the human emperor's palace. The heaven and earth furnace is also a huge consumption, except for the mighty figures. If it were those two divine martial arts cultivators, they would be completely sucked dry in a moment. Put the materials in order, don't cause conflicts, Sujan said in a deep voice as he controlled the heaven and earth furnace. Ling Huayu and Chu Shi nodded slightly. After an unknown period of time, crack, boom, came from the sky of the Qian Yuan realm. A sudden change. It made Sujan's mind tremble, and the heaven and earth furnace he controlled almost collapsed. Fortunately, he was quick to use his divine will and true essence to stabilize the situation. Not only him, even Ling Huayu and Chu Shi were taken aback. What's going on? How could such a change happen in the Qian Yuan realm? Chu Shi was shocked. Then the three of them saw the gathering thunderclouds in the distance. Sujan's face turned black. If I'm not wrong, it should be Emperor Qin forging a divine weapon. Ignore it. Focus on forging the human emperor's palace. He wanted to go over and scold Qin Shujian now. Doesn't the other party know that they are forging the human emperor's palace and can't be distracted? If not for my strength, just now, the casting would have failed. However, although Sujan was angry, he didn't really get up to question Qin Shujian. Something. Just think about it. After all, he is Emperor Qin. If he really disrespected him, he would have to bear the consequences. With the previous example, when forging later, Sujan also paid more attention to avoid the accident just now. Fortunately, in the next half a month, nothing happened. About this, Sujan gradually relaxed and turned all his attention to the human emperor's palace in front of him. After more than half a month, the human emperor's palace had begun to take shape. Another 5 days passed. Qin Shujian woke up from his cultivation and looked at the thunder clouds gathering on the plain with a faint smile on his face. The thunder tribulation has gathered. It seems that the human emperor's palace is almost finished. Well, the thunder tribulation is not weak. It should be able to reach the level of a top spiritual weapon. Although he didn't go over to see it in person, but by the strength of the thunder tribulation, he could roughly perceive something. Speaking of which, Qin Shujian had successfully forged some top spiritual weapons, so he was quite familiar with the fluctuations of top spiritual weapons. However, his smile faded a little, and he shook his head regretfully. It's a pity that this aura is still not strong enough. Even if it is successfully forged, it will at most be comparable to a Taoist weapon of the 1st or 2nd seal. It is impossible to reach a higher level. The human emperor's palace, which was comparable to a Taoist weapon of the 1st or 2nd seal, was actually not bad. But for Qin Shujian, a top spiritual weapon of this level was really bad. However, Sujan and the others had limited abilities. It was already good to be able to forge the human emperor's palace. If they asked for more, it would be a bit difficult. At most, I will find a way to get some luck in the future, or get some blood essence of experts to rebuild the palace. He had an idea in mind. Qin Shujian also focused on the thunder tribulation. At this time, the thunder tribulation in the sky had already fallen. The power comparable to the peak of the god martial arts realm was raging in the Qian Yuan realm. As time went by, the power of the thunder tribulation also gradually increased. It didn't take long for it to reach the celestial being level. The thunder tribulation reached the celestial being level. The pressure on Ling Huayu and Chu Shi suddenly increased. They were only in the god martial arts realm. It was easy to imagine how difficult it would be for them to face the celestial being thunder tribulation. Sujan crushed 2 spirit stones to replenish the vital essence he had consumed. Then he shouted in a deep voice, "You two step back. I can handle the rest." "Thank you." Be careful. Ling Huayu and Chu Shi didn't force him. After saying that, they tactfully retreated. The power of the thunder tribulation was too great. They really couldn't bear it. A mere celestial being, thunder tribulation, wants to stop me from forging a divine weapon. Ridiculous. Su Zhan looked at the thunder tribulation in the sky with disdain. When the thunder tribulation fell, he had already slammed out his sledgehammer and destroyed all the power of the thunder tribulation, and then turned it into nourishment for the human emperor's palace. Such a forging method. This was what he had learned from Qin Shujian. After observing the other party forging the divine weapon several times, Su Zhan also had some understanding in his heart. In addition, he had a deep foundation. After spending some time, he figured out such a forging method. The thunder tribulation raged. It lasted for a full 7 days. When the last thunder tribulation fell, the thunderclouds suddenly dispersed. The moment the thunderclouds dispersed, a powerful aura then spread out. Qin Shujian flew in the air and landed in front of the three. Qin Emperor, Ling Huayu, and Chu Shi bowed. As for Su Zhan, there was a faint smile on his face. Qin Emperor, fortunately, I did not disappoint you. Well done. Qin Shujian nodded slightly and praised him. Then his eyes fell on the palace in front of him. The palace of the human emperor. It was destined to be the core of the Qinyuan sacred ground in the future. So, what appeared in front of Qin Shujian was a complete palace integrated with a large number of side halls and a main hall. Su Zhan said, Qin Emperor, please name the palace. This palace will be the core of the Qinyuan sacred ground in the future. Let's call it Qinyuan Hall. After speaking, Qin Shujian's divine consciousness spread out. He only saw the words Qinyuan on the plaque of the main hall. It was a simple word, but it exuded a terrifying power. Then, Qin Shujian came in front of another hall that was not much smaller than the main hall and wrote the words Yuan on it. Tianyuan Palace, Qinyuan Hall. The former was his future residence, and the latter was the place where the Qinyuan sacred ground discussed. The remaining side halls, Qin Shujian did not name them. Instead, he left them blank. Tianyuan Palace, Qinyuan Hall. Su Zhan and the other two also followed behind Qin Shujian, looking at the other party's name. The same words. In the eyes of the three, they had different feelings in their hearts. Moreover, from these few simple words, he could tell. They also felt the boundless pressure. Su Zhan was better. Both Ling Huayu and Chu Shi were shaken to the core. In front of these words, the two felt their shoulders were heavy, as if they would be suppressed. Only when they looked away did they feel better. For this situation, the two found it funny, but they couldn't laugh. An expert in the god martial arts realm. In the cultivation world of the Eastern continent, he was a famous figure. Now, but they couldn't even bear the pressure of the words written by Qin Shujian. Wasn't it ridiculous? They even felt that. If the plaque with the words really fell, it would be enough to suppress them. Is this an expert? So strong. The two took a deep breath and barely suppressed the shock in their hearts. After walking around the palace once, Yizichin walked around the palace. Qin Shujian nodded in satisfaction, then looked at the few of them and said, when the sacred ground matter is over, Ben Huang will reward you. He didn't reward them now, because a month had passed. What he had to do next? He had to open the Qinyuan realm and gather all the cultivators in the world for a meeting. P.S. I'm asking for monthly votes. I'll book a monthly vote for next month. Chapter 627. A month had passed. The Qin Emperor's decree had spread throughout the world. All the sects in the eastern continent had sent cultivators to the Liang Mountain spirit realm. Strictly speaking, the sect masters of the various sects had all arrived, except for those who couldn't come out of seclusion for special reasons. At the same time, among the itinerant cultivators in the eastern continent, all the cultivators who had reached the god martial arts realm and above had arrived. It could be said that, now, Liang Mountain City was overcrowded. There are so many experts. Yin Banqing looked at the cultivators around him and sighed. Now, in Liang Mountain City, with a slap, 5 out of 10 people were in the spirit martial arts realm. Inside 100 people, There was one in the god martial arts realm. Now, there were hundreds of thousands of people in Liang Mountain City. It could be said that there were more than 1,000 experts in the god martial arts realm and above. And it was because of the war in the eastern continent that a group of experts had died. Otherwise, the number of god martial arts realm cultivators would have doubled. Hearing this, Heaven's Equal shook his head and said, "There are only 2,000 or 3,000 god martial arts realm cultivators in the human clan. How can it be said that there are so many experts in the human clan? Even a mid-level race among the foreign clans would have that many god martial arts realm cultivators." Hearing this, Banshing fell silent. Heaven's Equal was right. In terms of the number of experts, the human clan was really too small. There were very few god martial arts realm cultivators. There were even fewer celestial beings. If the human clan was a weak race, it would be fine. However, they were clearly a top race, but there were so few experts in the race. In a certain sense, the human clan was in a serious decline. Originally, Banshing was happy for the prosperity of the human clan when he saw thousands of god martial arts realm cultivators gathered in Liang Mountain City. But now, he heard Heaven's Equal's words. Only then did he realize. But soon, Banshing shook his head again and said, "Actually, that's not entirely true. The Imperial Court still has many experts in their hands. In terms of numbers, they are much more than the cultivation world. To be honest, there are actually many god martial arts realm cultivators in the human clan. There were many god martial arts realm cultivators. What they lacked were celestial beings. Of course, compared to the big races of the monster clan, they were still far away." At this moment, the void vibrated. The Qian Yuan realm opened. At this moment, all the cultivators turned their gazes to the sky. Immediately after, a boy walked out and looked at all the cultivators below. He said crisply, "By the order of the Qin Emperor, all the cultivators of the various sects and all the itinerant cultivators of the god martial realm and above are to enter the Qianyuan realm for a meeting." After that, Mu Yang took out the heavenly mirror and placed it at the entrance of the Qianyuan world. Immediately after, true essence condensed into a staircase that extended from the entrance to the ground. That was to take care of the cultivators of the sects who had yet to reach the airborne realm. All those who enter the Qianyuan realm need to stop in front of the heavenly mirror for a second. After saying this, all the cultivators were silent for a while. Following that, some experts flew into the sky and headed towards the entrance of the Qianyuan realm. It paused in front of the heaven mirror for a breath, and the other party's attributes were displayed. Seeing this, Mu Yang waved his hand and said, "Please go in." There was the first one. There was a second one. One expert after another entered the Qianyuan realm in an orderly manner. As for Mu Yang, who was guarding the door, they did not show the slightest bit of contempt. Despite his young age, the aura emanating from his body made the god martial realm cultivators feel apprehensive. They were sure the Mu Yang in front of them was definitely a terrifying expert. Walking into the Qianyuan realm, Banshing immediately felt a wave of spiritual energy rushing towards him, causing all the pores on his body to open up in an instant. Even his true essence vibrated slightly. Although it could not increase his cultivation base, it also allowed his spirit to recover a little. I've never heard of such a concentration of spiritual energy. If I can cultivate here for a few years, I can definitely break through to the late stage of the god martial realm. The spiritual energy is really too rich. The Qianyuan realm. Is this the Qianyuan realm? One cultivator after another felt the rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth around them, and they were all amazed. There were also people who looked at the sky. The long river of laws was surging above. What is that? I don't know. Not every cultivator could recognize the long river of laws. Even if someone had seen an expert at the almighty level make a move, it was the same. The power of laws displayed by cultivators. Compared to the real long river of laws, it was still somewhat different. Only those few celestial cultivators revealed a look of surprise when they saw the long river of laws. Sect Master Ling Huayu came out of nowhere, and Qin Yuanbai immediately looked at him. "How is it?" "The palace has been completed," Ling Huayu said in a deep voice. Qin Yuanbai nodded slightly. Then the two walked side by side, and he secretly transmitted his voice to Ling Huayu. You are building the palace here. Do you know the purpose of Emperor Qin's gathering us for a meeting? I heard it has something to do with the Qinyuan sacred ground. Qinyuan sacred ground? Qin Yuanbai was stunned. There were many sects in the world, but no one seemed to have built a sacred ground. Soon, he figured out the key point. So, Emperor Qin gathered all the sects to build the Qinyuan sacred ground to make it easier to rule the world. Qin Yuanbai frowned. Ever since Qin Shujian became the emperor, he had this speculation. After all, he was the emperor recognized by the human clan and the heavenly Tao. Emperor Zhao ruled the imperial court. Emperor Qin ruled the cultivation world. Needless to say, the imperial court was under Emperor Zhao's control since he established the Great Zhao more than 6,000 years ago. But there were many different sayings about ruling the cultivation world. Now there were many sects in the cultivation world, and there were many rogue cultivators among them. If Emperor Qin wanted to truly rule the cultivation world, he would need to do something. According to Qin Yuanbai's guess, Qin Shujian should want to build a sacred ground above all the sects, and then give orders to the sects as the master of the sacred ground. For this, it was still within the range that he could accept. Then, Qin Yuanbai transmitted his voice again. Do you know what the long river in the sky is? He had a guess in his heart, but he was not sure. Ling Huayu said, I heard Emperor Qin say that it is half of the long river of rules. If you get it, you can become a true immortal. Buzz. Qin Yuanbai's heart trembled. The long river of rules. It was really the long river of rules. And it was the long river of rules that could make one become an immortal. Looking at the half of rules in the sky, Qin Yuanbai's eyes showed a strong desire. Becoming an immortal. For anyone, it was an irresistible temptation. However, Qin Yuanbai also knew that it would not be an easy task for him to get that half of rules. After all, Emperor Qin had not become an immortal yet, so how could he allow others to become an immortal? There was a greater possibility. It was the other party who used this rule to become an immortal. No, it was half of the rule to become an immortal. Soon, they walked to the front of the human emperor's palace. On one side, it was a giant tree that reached the sky. Its lush branches and leaves covered the sky and the sun. Powerful spirit energy was surging within it. Celestial Eldar. The moment they saw Mu Yang, some experts guessed the other party's identity. After all, this was not a secret. As long as they had some knowledge, they could basically guess it. And under the giant tree, there was a black-robed man sitting cross-legged. That was Zhang Feng. Qin Yuanbai only glanced briefly, and then his gaze fell on the main hall in front of him. On the plaque, there were two words written, Qianyuan. Qianyuan Hall. He was thinking about the meaning of the two words Qianyuan. But when his gaze stopped on it for 2 breaths, a terrifying power was emitted from it. Qin Yuanbai felt as if his body was struck by lightning. In the end, he had to look away. Phew, what a powerful intent. After a long time, he let out a sigh of relief. There was some lingering fear in his eyes. Qin Yuanbai was basically sure. The person who left these 2 words was definitely Qin Shujian. There could not be a second person, because that powerful intent was mixed with power. It made his spiritual spirit tremble. If it was not written by the human emperor, how could it have such power? At this moment, the door of Qin Yuan Hall opened, and Su Yuanming walked out. He looked at everyone and said, I am here to welcome you on the order of Emperor Qin. Elder Su, you are too polite. Greetings, Elder Su. Many people cupped their hands and greeted him. Su Yuanming was no stranger to them. After all, he was the head of the Yuan sect's foreign affairs. Generally, he dealt with external affairs. He was also quite famous in the cultivation world. Of course, the reason why he was famous was because of the Yuan sect. But now that Su Yuanming had broken through to the God martial arts realm, there was no problem. Walking into Qin Yuan Hall, they saw 16 thick pillars supporting the entire hall. There were patterns engraved on the pillars. Every stroke of the brush seemed to be made by nature. What was really worth paying attention to was the space inside the hall. Looking from the outside, although Qin Yuan Hall was very big, It was not big enough to accommodate thousands of people, but when they really walked in, they found that there was a different world inside. Not to mention thousands of people, it was more than enough to accommodate tens of thousands of people. More importantly, there were already corresponding seats in the hall. Each seat was only about 5 feet apart. In addition, there was a white jade-like seat above the main seat. Su Yuanming said in a deep voice, "The seats are not fixed. Anyone can choose a seat at will. Emperor Qin is dealing with some things and will be here soon." "Thank you." Someone cupped his hands and thanked him. Then he chose a seat and sat down. Seeing this, Su Yuanming did not say more. The number of cultivators who came this time was not many, but it was not few either. There were more than 2,000 people in the divine martial arts realm. Plus the cultivators from other weak sects, there were more than 6,000 people. These people quickly sat down in Qian Yuan Hall. Then, Su Yuanming asked people to move the empty seats away. Thousands of people gathered. The scene was extremely quiet. No one spoke rashly. However, there were some experts who communicated with their divine wills. Maybe it was because of the atmosphere. Or maybe it was because Qian Yuan Hall was oppressive. This caused the expressions of the others to unconsciously become solemn. After an unknown period of time, Qin Shujian walked in from the outside. Seeing him appear, everyone stood up at the same time, bowed and said, "Greetings, Emperor Qin." Qin Shujian walked to the main seat expressionlessly and sat down. Then he looked at everyone and said lightly, "Everyone, please sit down." "Thank you, Emperor Qin." Everyone sat down. Then, their gazes fell on Qin Shujian. At this moment, the main character in Qian Yuan Hall was him. As for this meeting, some people had some guesses in their hearts. Looking at everyone, Qin Shujian's expressionless face revealed a faint smile. Recognized by the fate of the human race, Ben Huang can inherit the throne of the human emperor. Today, Emperor Zhao rules the great Zhao imperial court, and Ben Huang rules the cultivation world. Now, in the cultivation world, there are many sects and hundreds of flowers compete. Ben Huang is very gratified. In the main hall, only Qin Shujian's voice echoed. After he finished speaking, Fang Xinglan cupped his hands and said with a smile, "The cultivation world can have today mostly because of Emperor Qin's good fortune. If not for Emperor Qin turning the tide many times, our sects might have been destroyed by the alien race." He really knew how to flatter. Many people complained in their hearts. However, they still followed Fang Xinglan's words on the surface. Anyway, they said good things. Everyone would say that there was no loss in this. The smile on Qin Shujian's face deepened. He seemed to be quite happy about these words. However, after everyone finished speaking, his smile suddenly disappeared and then became solemn. However, until today, Ben Huang saw all of you. Only then did I understand that the prosperous appearance of the human cultivation world has reached the point where it is on the verge of destruction. In the Yao clan, there are hundreds of heavenly humans, dozens of mighty figures, and tens of thousands of divine martial artists. In terms of strength, the Shin clan, the Blood Eldar, the Ancient Buddha clan, and other major clans completely crush the human race. As a top clan, the human race's strength has declined to this extent. The sudden change in tone. This caused many people's expressions to change. However, after hearing Qin Shujian's words, some people fell silent. That's right. Now, the human race seemed to be flourishing, but compared to the other clans, it was still lacking. Qin Shujian said, "Of the 4 major continents, the human race monopolizes the eastern continent. After thousands of years of recuperation, the human race has more than 1 trillion people. However, only you have reached the divine martial arts realm. This ratio really makes this emperor's heart ache." "You are wrong, Emperor Qin." Someone disagreed with this statement and said, "Although there are billions of people in the human race, not many of them have truly stepped into the cultivation world. Moreover, every step of the cultivation world is extremely difficult. It is not easy to have such a scene now." "Well said." Qin Shujian would like to give a thumbs up to the person who answered. At this moment, the others also nodded. Yes, there are billions of people in the human race, but not many of them have stepped into the cultivation world. and those who can really break through to the divine martial arts realm are even rarer. However, Qin Shujian nodded first, and then said in a deep voice, "Everyone, ask yourselves, from the rudimentary martial artist to the true martial artist, then from the true martial artist to the spiritual martial artist, to the divine martial artist, and then to the heavenly humans, is the real reason why there are so few strong people is because of the difficulty of the cultivation world?" A rhetorical question. This made some people have some thoughts in their minds. However, the leaders of the top clans, such as Qin Yuanbai, were expressionless. They didn't know what Qin Shujian's purpose was, and they didn't dare to interrupt, for fear that they would give the other party something to talk about. No, the real obstacle to the birth of powerful people is not the difficulty of the cultivation world. Even if 99% of the people in the human race are mediocre, the remaining 1%, or even 1 in 1,000, or even 1 in 10,000 geniuses will grow up. There will not only be less than 3,000 divine martial arts realm cultivators in front of us, and there will not only be less than 5,000 divine martial arts realm cultivators. Qin Shujian shouted in a deep voice. The real obstacle to the birth of powerful people is the cultivation methods, which are not perfect enough. Cultivation methods of the truth level and the spirit level are not bad. As long as you pay a certain price, there is still hope to get them. However, the divine level cultivation methods are only in the hands of a few people. As for the divine level cultivation methods, they are firmly controlled by the top clans. Many talented cultivators, because of the shackles of the cultivation methods, have to waste decades or even hundreds of years in the same realm. Even when their lifespan is exhausted, they may not be able to get the cultivation methods to break through. There are also some who are already old when they get the cultivation methods and have to pass away in the end. Qin Shujian's voice was not loud, but it made the expressions of many experts of the sects change drastically. Even Qin Yuanbai and the others could not sit still at this time. Cultivation methods. It was a big taboo for any sect. When the other party mentioned the cultivation methods at this time, they had a bad feeling. However, Qin Shujian did not take their expressions seriously at all. He still said, "Ben Huang, let's change the topic. There are more than 2,000 divine martial arts realm cultivators here. May I ask how many of them lack the divine level cultivation methods? May I ask how many people have the talent and confidence to break through to the celestial being realm, but because they don't have the cultivation methods to guide them, they are stuck in their current realm?" As soon as he finished speaking, a divine martial arts realm cultivator sighed and said, "If I had the divine level cultivation methods, I would have broken through to the celestial being realm 300 years ago." Hearing someone speak, the others also looked over. Suddenly, someone's pupil shrank as he recognized the other party's identity. Dao Lord Qingwei, the top expert among the itinerant cultivators. As Dao Lord Qingwei spoke, another cultivator sighed and said, "That's right. The divine level cultivation methods are now controlled by the top sections. If not for the lack of cultivation methods, our sects would have produced celestial beings." This time, the person who spoke was not an itinerant cultivator, but a sect master of a large sect. In front of the divine level cultivation methods, those large sects were no different from itinerant cultivators. Only the top sects had the divine level cultivation methods inheritance and could produce celestial beings. In the cultivation world, each large sect controls the cultivation methods, dividing the huge cultivation world into sects and itinerant cultivators. In order to obtain the corresponding cultivation methods, itinerant cultivators have to pay several times, or even dozens of times the price. The true Dominion sects control the true level cultivation methods, making it difficult for itinerant cultivators to break through to the true martial realm. The Spirit Protectorate sects control the spirit level cultivation methods, making it difficult to produce spirit martial realm cultivators. The Great Dominion sects control the divine level cultivation methods, making it difficult for them to produce spirit martial realm cultivators. Finally, the top sects control the divine level cultivation methods, making it so that the number of celestial beings in the huge cultivation world can be counted on two hands. The inheritance of cultivation methods is the biggest problem in the cultivation world. If there weren't these shackles, the overlords in the cultivation world today would definitely be several times stronger. Qin Shujian sat on the main seat and looked at everyone calmly and said, "What exactly do you mean, Emperor Qin? Why don't you say it?" The middle-aged man cupped his hands and said in a deep voice. Qin Shujian also looked at the other party and recognized the middle-aged man. A top sect, the sect master of the Dark Eye sect, Lu Taixian. Qin Shujian glanced at the other party and said, "Since the end of the ancient times, the various clans have been aiming to destroy the human race, causing the human race to decline step by step until today. I believe that most of the people present have participated in the Battle of the East Continent. They also understand how urgent it is for the various clans to destroy the human race. After the end of the ancient times, there were many perfected immortals of the human race. Whenever the human race was on the verge of destruction, a supreme overlord would step forward bravely to save the desperate situation. At least in the battle 200,000 years ago, the last perfected immortal of the human race, Xia Yi, died. Before Senior Xia Yi died, he sacrificed himself to set up the heaven and earth restriction array, giving the human race a chance to recuperate. Regarding this history, some people understood it, while some didn't. But no one interrupted Qin Shujian, because there were some things that they also wanted to know. Qin Shujian said, "For 200,000 years, the human race was enslaved and persecuted by the demon race in the East Continent. It wasn't until Emperor Zhao rose 7,000 years ago that he led the human race to fight against the demon race. More than 6,000 years ago, Emperor Zhao was established and drove the demon race to the endless mountain range, allowing the human race to regain control of the East Continent. More than 6,000 years should have been a chance for the human race to recuperate, but because of the differences between the sects and the deep-rooted views of inheritance, the human race was unable to advance. During the war in the East Continent, the human race suffered countless casualties, including many heavenly beings. If it weren't for the fact that the various clans were afraid of attacking the human race with all their strength, the human race would have been wiped out the moment the East Continent opened. Although the situation has calmed down a lot now, the various clans will have to fight the human race sooner or later. If the human race continues to stagnate, when the next war begins, the human race will have no way to retreat. There may still be perfected immortals in the various clans, but Ben Huang can tell you clearly that there are no more perfected immortals in the human race. Once Emperor Zhao and Ben Huang fall, the human race will be like weak lambs in front of the various clans. They can be slaughtered and devoured at will. There is absolutely no chance of survival. If we don't want the human race to be wiped out, the human race itself must become stronger. The foundation of this strength lies in the inheritance of cultivation techniques." At this point, Qin Shujian suddenly paused, looked at the crowd, and said loudly, "So, today, there are 3 things in Ben Huang to announce. First, from today onwards, the Qinyuan sacred ground will be established. All the clans in the world will be under the control of the sacred ground and listen to the orders of the sacred ground. Second, the sacred ground must have a copy of the cultivation techniques and martial arts inheritance of all the clans in the world. Finally, the sacred ground will compile it into a book and disseminate it to the world. Third, Ben Huang will establish Qinyuan colleges everywhere. All the human race can go to these colleges to be enlightened and embark on the path of cultivation." 3 pieces of news. It set off a storm in the main hall. If the first piece of news was considered good, the other clans had already been mentally prepared. After all, after the Qin Emperor became the emperor, he was supposed to control the cultivation world. It was normal for him to establish a sacred ground and give orders. But the second piece of news, and the third piece of news, that was a complete shock to them. But the difference was, the rogue cultivators and some small clans were ecstatic. The big clans and the top clans' faces were as dark as ink. What's more, they couldn't help but say, "Qin Emperor, the inheritance of the various clans belongs to the clans. Why should they be handed over to the sacred ground?" That's right. The inheritance of our clans is the blood and sweat of our ancestors. If we hand it over to the sacred ground and let others cultivate it, wouldn't it be digging up our foundation and cutting off our inheritance? Qin Emperor, please reconsider. Qin Emperor, please reconsider. These clans were about to go crazy. What a joke. The inheritance of the cultivation method was their thing. Even if it was a disciple, they wouldn't easily impart too much. This was the foundation of a clan. If it was spread out and everyone learned it, then what was the point of the clan's existence? So, in their view, such an approach was cutting off the foundation of their clans. Facing the opposition of the crowd, Qin Shujian had already expected this. Soon after, he coldly snorted and suppressed all the noise in the hall. There is something that you may not be very clear about. Ben Huang is not discussing with you. Instead, I am announcing this decision. All the clans of the human race must hand over all the cultivation method copies and not hide anything. Anyone who discovers it will be treated as a traitor. As Qin Shujian spoke, a terrifying aura spread out from his body, suppressing everyone's mind and making them tremble. In addition, the existing resources of the various clans, and even all the resources in the future, will all be handed over to the sacred ground. In the end, the sacred ground will distribute them. Boom. Once this sentence was out, a perilous situation arose again. Silence. Qin Shujian shouted sternly. After suppressing all the voices, he spoke again. The sacred ground will set up the heaven roll. The top 100 cultivators of the basic martial realm, true martial realm, spirit martial realm, divine martial realm, heavenly being, and perfected immortal realm will enter the heaven roll. In the future, the resources will be allocated by the sacred ground. 50% of the resources will be allocated by the heaven roll. The remaining 50% will belong to the other clans. In addition, each sect can send a divine martial realm cultivator as a deacon of the sacred ground. Heavenly beings can become elders of the sacred ground. In addition, any itinerant cultivator who reaches the peak of the divine martial realm can become an elder of the sacred ground and assist Ben Huang in handling the affairs of the sacred ground. Meanwhile, each sect can establish a foundation in the sacred ground. However, the number of people who can enter the sacred ground is limited. The True Dominion sect has 5 people, the Spirit Dominion sect has 10, the Great Dominion sect has 20, and the top major sects have 50. In addition, any disciple who is on the martial realm roll will have an extra place. Each person on the true martial roll will have 3 places, the Spirit martial roll will have 5 places, the Divine martial roll will have 10 places, and the Heavenly being roll will have 15 places. All the places will change every 3 years. If anyone fails to make the roll during this period, they will be expelled from the sacred ground. Qin Shujian looked at the crowd and spoke faintly. Next, he explained the rules of the heaven roll in detail. In the end, Qin Shujian added, the Qianyuan College will be open to all cultivation techniques from the elementary martial realm to the spirit martial realm for free. If a cultivator reaches the peak of the spirit martial realm and wants to obtain a divine martial realm cultivation technique, they will only need to kill a spirit martial realm alien race. If a cultivator at the peak of the divine martial realm wants to obtain a divine martial realm cultivation technique, they will only need to kill a divine martial realm alien race. After all, the sacred ground does not provide for idlers. Ben Huang can satisfy you with cultivation techniques, but you also have to contribute to the human race. The most direct way is to kill an alien race. At this moment, a sect cultivator stood up and said in a low voice, please forgive me for not agreeing. The cultivation technique inheritance is the lifeline of the sect, and the resources are the foundation of the sect. If all of this is handed over to the sacred ground, what is the point of our sects existing? If that is the case, all the sects should disband and merge into the sacred ground. Good. Qin Shujian was not angry. Instead, he smiled and nodded. In that case, all the sects in the world will be disbanded and merged into the Qianyuan sacred ground. Ben Huang will allow each sect to leave a legacy in the sacred ground. Impossible. Yes, even if you are the human emperor, you can't be so overbearing and directly cut off the legacy of our sections. Our sects have also fought for the human race. Now the Qin emperor wants to ban our sections. It is disappointing. This time, the cultivators of the other sects could not sit still and stood up to oppose. For a moment, in the Qianyuan hall, hundreds of people had stood up. Jing Bianyun on the side also wanted to make a move, but he was directly suppressed by Yin Banqing. Don't act rashly. He knew Qin Shujin's character very well. The Qin Emperor in front of him had obviously been preparing for this for a long time. If opposition alone could make the other party change his mind, the possibility was not high. Perhaps there would be other changes later. Banqing thought of something and sighed in his heart. Banqing was not the only one who did not make a move. The Heavenly Array sect, the Supreme sect, the Tuahai sect, and the Nonahal sect also did not make any moves for the time being. Lu Taixian stood up, looked at Feng Xinglan and Banqing, and said, "Brother Feng, Brother Yin, the Heavenly Array sect and the Traceless sect are also the foundations of our ancestors. Are you going to sit by and watch the foundation of our sects be destroyed?" Banqing did not reply. Feng Xinglan frowned and said, "The Qin Emperor naturally has his own plans. We'd better wait and see." Humph. Lu Taixian snorted coldly and ignored him. It was absolutely impossible to destroy the legacy of the Dark Eye sect. Now there were hundreds of sects that objected, and more people stood up one after another. It seemed that it was because there were so many people. As for those individual cultivators, none of them spoke. They were not fools. The establishment of the Qinyuan sacred ground and the words that Qin Shujin had just said were of great benefit to the individual cultivators. The only thing that would harm them was the interests of the sections. Qin Shujin calmly looked at the people who stood up and said lightly, "Are you going to force me to abdicate?" His voice was flat, but it contained a terrible majesty. Some people's hearts trembled, but some people's expressions did not change. Lu Taixian cupped his hands and said, "Don't get me wrong, Qin Emperor. We don't mean to force you to abdicate. It's just that the decision just now has already destroyed the foundation of our sections. Our sects definitely can't agree to this kind of thing. Moreover, in the last battle in the East Continent, our sect also had Xinwu cultivators who died in battle. Don't you care about our old friendship at all? Some people from the Dark Eye sect died in battle, and some people from other sects also died in battle. More than half of the disciples of the Yuanyuan sect died in battle. Ben Huang only wants to ask you, if your Dark Eye sect is fighting for the human clan, then you, Lu Taixian, are a human. Everyone in your Dark Eye sect is a human. You are fighting for the human clan, and you are also fighting for yourselves. Ben Huang respects the cultivators who died in battle as heroes of the human clan. But you have the views of your sects and control the cultivation methods to stop the cultivators of the human clan from moving forward. You are destroying the foundation of the human clan. A hero is a hero, but a tumor is also a tumor. Today, Ben Huang doesn't destroy the foundation of your sects, but you want to destroy the foundation of the human clan. Qin Shujin's voice was cold and angry as he scolded. In the end, he looked around at the crowd and said again, "Ben Huang will give you 3 breaths to consider. If you sit down again, I can let bygones be bygones." After that, he closed his eyes. Hearing this sentence, some of the cultivators who didn't have confidence had to sit down again. However, there were even more cultivators who remained motionless. This kind of thing was destroying their foundation. It was absolutely intolerable. 3 breaths later, Qin Shujin opened his eyes again. Looking at the people who were still standing, he nodded slightly and said, "Very good. It seems that you have made a decision. Now, Ben Huang will add one more thing. Those who don't follow Ben Huang's orders will be regarded as betraying the human clan. As for the traitors," Qin Shujin's eyes suddenly became cold, and he said word by word, "Kill. None. Amnesty." After that, the expressions of the cultivators who stood up changed drastically. But before they could speak, a terrifying power rose from Qin Shujin's body. The endless power turned into a big hand and pinched all the cultivators. Immediately, bang, all the cultivators' bodies directly exploded, turning into a bloody mist that scattered all over the sky. Then, the heaven mist swept away, and all the bloody mist dissipated. Although the bloody mist dissipated, but the smell of blood was still there. Everyone's face was pale, and they looked at Qin Shujin as if they had seen a terrible existence. Dead, they're all dead. How could this be? Some cultivators couldn't believe it, and some cultivators were wailing. Those wailing cultivators. They were all the fellow disciples of the many cultivators who were killed just now. Gulp. Banqing swallowed hard. He saw with his own eyes that Lu Taixian was directly crushed to death by the other party. A dignified expert at the first level of the celestial being realm was like an ant without any resistance. He had expected that Lu Taishuan's opposition would cause bad things, but he didn't expect that Qin Shujian's methods would be so ruthless. He killed hundreds of experts without leaving a single one alive. Among them were the sect masters of the top sects, as well as the sect-guarding experts of the sects of the major regions. Those who could sit here. Basically, they were the sect-guarding experts of the various sections. But even so, they were still dead. Yin Banqing looked at Fang Xinglan and the others. Coincidentally, these people also looked at him. They looked at each other. They could see the lingering fear. At this moment, many people felt sorry for the death of the rabbit. He easily killed all the cultivators who opposed him. Qin Shujian's expression didn't change at all. Long before the meeting, he had such an expectation. If he wanted to integrate the Holy Land, it wasn't possible to rely on the title of the human emperor. There was no blood. There was no killing. These sects wouldn't really submit. Of course, it would be best if everything went smoothly, but there were always some people who didn't know what was good for them. After killing Lu Taixian and the others, Qin Shujian looked at the others and said slowly, "Anyone else who wants to object can also stand up now. Anyone who destroys the foundation of the human race is a traitor. Ben Huang will fulfill your wish." As soon as these words came out, the hall fell into a dead silence. There were only a few people who were really not afraid of death. Even if they weren't afraid of death, they didn't want to die so meaninglessly. After a while, no one spoke. Qin Shujian finally nodded with satisfaction. "It seems that you have no objections to Ben Huang's words." The situation was better than he expected. He thought that he would have to kill a few more people to warn the others. Qin Shujian had already made up his mind to kill all the experts of the sects and even destroy all of the sections. Compared to the base of the human race, these sects were insignificant. If all the sects were eradicated, Qin Shujian believed that it wouldn't be long before the Qinyuan sacred ground could cultivate a force that was no weaker than the current cultivation world. But now it seemed, based on the number of sects, the number of people who objected was relatively small. As for the rest of the sections, Qin Shujian didn't want to find out whether it was because he was scared of being killed or whether it was because he sincerely agreed. All he wanted was the result. Then, Qin Shujian looked at the crowd and said with a smile, "Since there are no more objections, I will continue with what I just said." Chapter 628. Extraordinary Times. Extraordinary means. Now that the human race was facing a life-and-death situation, there was no need for too many different voices. Establishing the Qinyuan sacred ground. Qin Shujian's goal was to have the voice of Emperor Qin be the only one in the entire world of cultivation. That would be enough. Great Zhao only had one voice, and that was Emperor Zhao. The rest, those who did not comply, would all be killed. Hundreds of millions of people in the eastern continent. Even if all the sects were wiped out, it would not affect the overall situation. Anyway, there were not many diviners. If a war really broke out, these cultivators would be cannon fodder. In that case, it was better to clear out all these stumbling blocks. Even if this decision, indeed, millions of people would bleed and die, and Qin Shujian would not hesitate to do so. "I am the emperor of the human race, and only the emperor of the human race." Qin Shujian thought of his conversation with Xia Yi in the void turbulence. He was the emperor of the human race, not someone's emperor. If sacrificing a small number of people in exchange for a better future for the human race, Qin Shujian would not hesitate to do it. In the main hall, Yin Banqing and the others were sensible. Or else, if they stood up, Qin Shujian would still not show mercy. From today onwards, all the sects in the world will be included in the Qinyuan sacred ground. From now on, there will be no more sects in the eastern continent. However, Ben Huang does not really want to destroy all the inheritances. But now is an extraordinary time, and we can only use extraordinary means. Qin Shujian said. But as Ben Huang said, each sect can leave an inheritance in the sacred ground as a symbol of the foundation of each sect. All the cultivation methods, martial arts, and resources will be handed over to the sacred ground for unified management. In the future, the initiators of the human race in the Eastern continent who do not want to stay in the academy can go to the various academies to receive a top-grade, true-level foundation-laying cultivation method. At the same time, the sacred ground will set up a sky patrol to monitor the world. Anyone who kills without permission will be arrested by the sky patrol and punished according to the severity of the case. If anyone disobeys, they can be killed on the spot. In addition, the sacred ground will set up a sky patrol to supervise the sky patrol. Those who violate their duties will be severely punished. Sky patrol, sky patrol. When the others heard these words, their faces became solemn. It was predictable. After the establishment of the Qinyuan sacred ground, these two organizations were the masters of the entire cultivation world, in charge of life and death. Hearing this, Embark cupped his hands and said, "Dare I ask the Qin Emperor, who can be the supervising angel and who can be the inspecting celestial guards?" As long as you are an elder of the Holy Land, you may have the opportunity to become an angel supervisor. Qin Shujian said faintly, "Deacons of the Holy Land can also become commanders of the Heavenly Patrol. As for the members of the Heavenly Patrol, you can discuss among yourselves. But even if they are sky patrolling guards, they are required to patrol the world and inspect cultivators. If they don't have enough strength, they won't be able to take up that position. Therefore, all sky patrolling guards must be at least in the 7th level of the spirit realm." 7th level of the spirit realm? That would be a prominent divine stage cultivator. Many people had shocked expressions on their faces. The celestial beings were the supervising angels. Shun Wu was the commander of the celestial patrol. Only those above the 7th level of the spirit realm had the qualifications to become a normal sky patrol. From this, it could be seen. Once these two organizations were established, their authority and strength would be limitless. In the Eastern Continent's ordinary realm, at least one academy needs to be established, with a true martial realm cultivator as the dean. In the True Dominion, at least 3 academies need to be established, with a spirit martial realm cultivator as the dean. In the spirit realm, at least 10 academies need to be established, with a divine martial realm cultivator as the dean. In the Great Domains, at least 30 academies need to be established, with a divine martial realm cultivator or above as the dean. Qin Shujian said. Hearing this, a cultivator cupped his hands and said, "Qin Emperor, the Eastern Continent has 13 prefectures and a total of 74 great domains. According to this calculation, we need at least 2,000 late-stage divine martial realm experts. With the current strength of the cultivation world, I'm afraid we can't afford it." What he said was already very tactful. It wasn't that they couldn't afford it, but that they couldn't afford it at all. The divine martial realm cultivators present. Basically, all the experts in the cultivation world. After all, there were only 2,000 people. Most of them were at the early stage of the divine martial realm. As for late-stage divine martial realm cultivators, they were pitifully few. Qin Shujian said lightly, "If we can't afford that many 7th-stage divine martial realm cultivators, then all the divine martial realm cultivators will be appointed as the dean of the Great Domain Academy. The deans are elected every 100 years. Ben Huang hopes that in 100 years, the deans of the Qinyuan Academy will all be late-stage divine martial realm cultivators." After he finished speaking, he took out the heaven list from his spiritual sea. The next moment, the heaven list was placed in the main hall. All the cultivators' eyes fell on the heaven list. "I am Qin Emperor. From today onwards, I will unite all the sects in the world and establish the Qinyuan sacred ground. Among the human race, the sacred ground will be supreme." As soon as he finished speaking, the Eastern Continent was shaken. The light from providence of all the sects rose and then suddenly shattered. Immediately afterward, countless rays of light gathered. In the sky, the phantom of a list condensed, directly transcending the constraints of the Qinyuan realm and manifesting in the outside world. At the same time, Qin Shujian's voice also borrowed the power of the light from providence to spread throughout the world. How could this be? Qinyuan sacred ground. Is Qin Emperor going to wipe out all the sects in one fell swoop? No. The strong cultivators who stayed behind to guard the sects were now crazy. All the light from the sections, all of it overflowed uncontrollably and gathered toward the heaven list. Even the treasures of the sects could not suppress the loss of the light from providence. Some fourth-class sects fell to third-class sects, third-class sects fell to second-class sects, second-class sects fell to first-class sects, and then from first-class sects fell to zero-class sections. In the end, the last bit of light dissipated, and the sects completely collapsed. Some of the strength that was directly increased by the light from providence, because of the increase in the level of the sects, collapsed directly at this moment. Some cultivators of the spiritual martial realm fell to the true martial realm. Some cultivators of the physical invulnerability realm fell to the inner invulnerability realm. Even some cultivators of the true martial realm fell to the martial realm. In the heaven meridian, the light from Yuanzong dissipated. Song Hong sighed. Some kind of power was being extracted from his body, causing his newly broken realm to tremble slightly. But the good thing was, this trembling did not last long. By the time it disappeared, although there was a fluctuation in his realm, it still remained in the divine martial realm. All the light from the sects have retreated. Qin Emperor's actions this time are too big. Song Hong still had a lingering fear. Fortunately, he was not a salted fish that only relied on the light from the sects to improve. When he saw Qin Shujian deprive the light from the other elders and deacons, he understood that the improvement of light from providence was not reliable. So, during that time, Song Hong had been polishing his improved realm until it was completely stabilized, and then he broke through to the divine martial realm. Therefore, this time, the changes in the sects did not directly return him to his original state. It was not just him. Even the other elders in the sects were not affected much. However, there were also some deacons whose realms had dropped to a certain extent, but not by much. At this moment, the heaven list, which had gathered countless light from providence in the sky, had become solid. The Qinyuan realm. In the Qinyuan Great Hall, the heaven list absorbed the light from the world, and a terrifying aura was emitted from it, as if it could suppress the world. Among all the cultivators present, except for a very small number of cultivators who were affected, the others were not affected. The light from the sect is gone, Jing Bianyun murmured. As the sect master of the traceless sect, he could naturally sense the changes in the sect. Just now, the light from the traceless sect that had accumulated for thousands of years was gone. Even if it was a Tao artifact of the sect, it was not enough to suppress the loss of light. That feeling, it made Jing Bianyun think that he was the one who stole the light from the sect, and Qin Shujian was the master of the light from the sect. Now, his face was pale. The light from the traceless sect was gone. It meant that the traceless sect no longer existed. A sect without light from providence. How could it be considered a real sect? It was not recognized by the world, nor by the human race. But soon, once again, he felt a vast amount of energy converging from the unseen world. This is light from providence. Feeling the changes in his body, Jing Bianyun's expression changed slightly, and he suddenly looked up at the heaven list in the hall. Over there, he saw his name, 46th on the divine martial realm list. It wasn't just Jing Bianyun. Many people in the hall felt that something had fallen on their bodies from the unseen world. At that moment, their comprehension of cultivation seemed to have been enlightened. Even the circulation of their vital essence was a little faster. Such a change. Their gazes landed on the heaven ranking at the same time. Qin Shujian said in a deep voice, "The Qinyuan sacred ground has set up the heaven list, and all the cultivators in the world can be listed on it. Now the list is the list of cultivators who the heaven list thinks are strong enough to be ranked in the top 100 of the current realm. Any cultivator on the list will be protected by the light from the sacred ground, and they will be successful in their cultivation. However, the list is chosen by the heaven list, and it is not accurate. Other cultivators who are not on the list can also challenge the people on the list. If they can replace them, they can enter the heaven list. In addition, those who are not more than 25 years old can enter the martial realm list. Those who are not more than 50 years old can enter the true martial realm list. Those who are not more than 500 years old can enter the spirit martial realm list. Those who are not more than 2,000 years old can enter the Divine Martial Realm list. There are no restrictions on Celestial Realm cultivators. As long as one is a Celestial Realm cultivator, strength is respected. Qin Shujian explained. He did not mention true immortals. There was no need for that. There were not many Celestial Realm cultivators now, let alone true immortals. Fang Xinglan cupped his hands and said, Sect Master, how are the talents and combat strength on the list evaluated? Based on the human clan, talents are based on race, realm, combat strength, and age. Talents are also divided into 4 levels: mediocre, superior, genius, and outstanding. Those who are mediocre have a chance to break through to the Celestial Realm in the future. Those who are superior have a chance to become powerful figures in the future. Those who are called geniuses have a chance to step into the Nirvana realm and become a true immortal in the future. Those with outstanding talents will definitely become immortals. Boom. A stone stirred up 1,000 ripples. Everyone's expression changed drastically. Those with mediocre talents could become Celestial Realm cultivators. The heaven list requirements were too high. Soon, those cultivators who were on the list were all looking for information about themselves. They wanted to see with their own eyes what stage they were at. Mediocre, haha. My talent is mediocre. It seems that I have a chance to break through to the Celestial Realm. Haha, I'm also mediocre. I'm superior. In that case, I can break through to the Almighty Realm in the future. Looking at the talent evaluation above, some people were pleasantly surprised, while others were worried. But most of them were pleasantly surprised. Because this time, the list was no longer just disciples of Yuan's sect, but all cultivators. Those who were able to be on the list were naturally experts in the same realm. This kind of cultivator. Generally speaking, their talents wouldn't be too bad. However, this time, Qin Shujian excluded the players and only included the native human clan cultivators. As for the non-human clan cultivators, they couldn't be on the list either. But even for the cultivators on the list, not everyone could get a mediocre evaluation. A true martial realm cultivator said hesitantly, May I ask, Qin Emperor, if your talent is blank, what is the reason? Those who can't form a mediocre evaluation, their talent is blank. Qin Shujian said. Hearing that, the cultivator's face turned pale in an instant. Those who couldn't form a talent were blank. That meant cultivators with blank talent had no chance to break through to the Celestial Realm. Although he knew that there was still a big gap between him and the Celestial Realm, he still suffered a huge blow when he suddenly knew this. Did he have a chance to break through to the Celestial Realm? It was completely different from whether he was destined to break through to the Celestial Realm. He wasn't the only one whose face turned pale. There were also a small number of cultivators whose faces turned pale. As for Qin Yuanbai, at this moment, his face was also very dark, because his talent evaluation was mediocre. Impossible. How could I have a mediocre evaluation? Could it be that I won't have a chance to break through to the Almighty Realm in the future? Qin Yuanbai couldn't believe it. Although the Nine Palace sect had never produced an Almighty Realm expert, he didn't think that he would be inferior to his predecessors. But now that the Heaven List was established, this made the sect master of the Nine Palace sect suffer a huge blow. Qin Shujian said, in the ancient times, the Heavenly Court had an immortal list of myriad clans, and all the cultivators on the list were at least the Celestial Realm. This Heaven List was created from the fragments of the immortal list of myriad clans, and it also followed the settings of the Heavenly Court. However, although talent is an evaluation, it's not 100% accurate. The evaluation shown above is only the height that you can reach in the future, but it's not the height that is inevitable, because talent isn't static. If a cultivator's current talent is blank, but he breaks through to the Celestial Realm one day, then his talent will naturally transform into mediocre. So, you don't have to care too much about talent. Qin Shujian reminded. When the others heard that, their expressions became a little better, but some people still felt uncomfortable. Immediately after, Qin Shujian said again, as for combat strength, it's also a standard of the Heavenly Court's evaluation. The level of combat strength doesn't represent absolute, it's just an evaluation of the cultivator. But for cultivators who have other hidden means, or even with the help of divine weapons, they can still exert strength far beyond their own combat strength. Hearing that, all the cultivators in the hall shifted their gazes to the heaven roll. Whether it was on the list or not on the list, they all wanted to see what level the other people's combat strength had reached. Qi Tianshang quickly found his name and looked at his combat strength evaluation. Suddenly, the corner of his mouth twitched slightly. Combat strength, 21. Although Qi Tianshang didn't know what a combat strength of 21 meant, he instinctively felt that his combat strength should be very low. Subsequently, his gaze moved away from the divine martial list and fell on the celestial list. Not long after, Qi Tianshang found Embark's information. Combat strength, 112. Seeing this, he felt a little better in his heart. I'm already at the peak of the divine martial realm, but my combat strength is only 21. Embark broke through to the celestial realm, but his combat strength is 112. This means that the gap between me and the celestial realm is about 5 times. Qi Tianshang thought in his heart. He estimated the gap between the two sides and found that the gap between the peak of the divine martial realm and the celestial realm was about that much. As a result, his ability to trust the heaven roll had also increased a little. Soon, Qi Tianshang scanned through everyone's names on the heaven ranking. There weren't many people who could be on the list. There were only 6 people in the entire celestial list. Embark, Fang Xinglan, Ji Yuanliang, Shunya, Cui Huai, Qin Yuanbai, and that Qin Shihuang. Among them, Qin Shujian was ranked first. The remaining 6 people were ranked behind. In other words, there were only 6 celestial realm cultivators left in the cultivation world. There were originally 7, but Lu Taixian had just been crushed to death, so he naturally couldn't be on the list. In such a big cultivation world, excluding Qin Shihuang, there were only 6 celestial realm cultivators. Originally, Qi Tianshang didn't think that the human clan was weak, but now it seemed that they were really pitifully weak. It was fine if they weren't on the list. If one looked at the list carefully, they would know that the human clan's experts were scarce to such an extent. While he was sighing in his heart, Qi Tianshang also looked at the combat strength of these celestial realm cultivators. Similar to Embark, most of them were around 100. Only Qin Yuanbai was at the 2nd level of the celestial realm, and his combat strength had reached 200. As for that Qin Shihuang, it was blank. Embark raised his head, silently looking at the data on the heaven list. Excluding Qin Shujian, among the 6 celestial realm cultivators, he was almost the weakest one, at the bottom of the celestial realm cultivators. To this, Embark didn't feel too surprised. After all, he had just broken through to the celestial realm not long ago, and it was before his lifespan was exhausted. It was already not easy to become a celestial realm cultivator. How high would his combat strength be? The threshold of the celestial realm cultivator's combat strength should be around 100. Looking at the list, Embark came to a conclusion. At this time, a middle-aged man cupped his hands and said, I also want to see the strength of Qin Shihuang. I wonder if I can do so? Many people were stunned when they heard this. Then they looked at Qin Shujian with shining eyes. That's right. They also wanted to see how much combat strength Qin Shujian had and how talented he was. There was no other reason. It was purely out of curiosity about this human emperor. It was just that there were only a few who dared to ask. The person who spoke now, it was one of the powerhouses on the heaven list, Ji Yuanliang. He was originally a celestial realm cultivator of the top sects in Thousand Mountains Prefecture, but now that the sect was gone, he could barely be considered an elder of the sacred ground. Hearing this, Qin Shujian didn't get angry and said with a smile, Since you want to see, Bin Huang will fulfill your wish. I just hope that after you see it, you won't leak it out. Qin Shihuang, don't worry. Other than the people present, no one else will know about this. That's right, we won't leak it out. Those cultivators agreed immediately. Seeing this, Qin Shujian looked a little helpless. Then, with a wave of his hand, the fog on the heaven list dispersed a little, revealing his combat strength and talent evaluation. Combat strength, 36,000. Talent evaluation. Excellent. The hall was dead silent. Some cultivators even rubbed their eyes, afraid that they had seen wrongly. 36,000 combat strength. Hiss, excellent talent. The sound of people sucking in cold air rose one after another. They didn't know what a combat strength of 36,000 meant, but compared with the other powerhouses on the celestial list, it was immediately clear. In the entire celestial list, excluding Qin Shujian, the one with the strongest combat strength was Qin Yuanbai, 234. One with 36,000. One with 234. Everyone was silent. This was no longer a gap, but an existence on a completely different level. They remembered that when Qin Shujian crushed Lu Taixin to death, he didn't even raise his hand. Now that they thought about it, they felt that it was natural. To put it bluntly, with the strength of this Qin Shi Huang, even if all the cultivators in the cultivation world were combined, they wouldn't be enough to crush him with one hand. Among other things, the cultivators on the list, the God Martial Arts realm and the Celestial realm cultivators, were considered the strongest in the entire cultivation world. The combat strength of so many people added up was only 2,000 or 3,000. This combat strength, it wasn't even a fraction of the other parties. Not to mention the excellent talent, which meant that this Qin Shi Huang was destined to become a supreme immortal if he didn't die. At this moment, everyone was sincerely convinced. Originally, they were dissatisfied with Qin Shujian's action of forcibly disbanding all the sects and returning them to the Qinyuan sacred ground. Now, this dissatisfaction dissipated. They no longer doubted it. If all the people present opposed it, would this Qin Shi Huang wipe out all the cultivators in one fell swoop? They also realized, to the human race, their existence was truly dispensable. Sometimes, in terms of realm, there was no gap. But in terms of combat strength, this gap was very obvious. Suddenly, Ji Yuanliang sighed. It is the honor of the human clan to have Qin Shi Huang. There was nothing more to say. He had truly understood the gap between him and Qin Shujian. If they really fought, this Qin Shi Huang could crush them to death as easily as eating and drinking. But at the same time, Qin Shujian was so powerful. In the 4 major continents, there were still powerhouses like the Demon Emperor and the Divine Emperor who could be comparable to him. As a result, it also indirectly showed that it was just as easy for such a powerhouse to destroy them. In other words, if these powerhouses attack the cultivation world in the future, if this Qin Shi Huang did not take action, the cultivation world would definitely be destroyed. No one would be spared. The cultivation world, it was really too weak. It was so weak that all the powerhouses added together were not even a fraction of Qin Shujian's combat strength. It was like this in front of Qin Shujian. If it was in the 4 major continents, it would be even more pitifully weak. Qin Shujian waved his hand again, hiding the information about himself on the heaven list. Finally, his gaze fell on 2 of them. Those 2 people, they were the sect masters of the Yinyang sect and the Crimson Heaven sect. Shi Yinyang and Lu Yan's faces were as ugly as if they had eaten shit. Their hearts were trembling. When they noticed Qin Shujian's gaze, they could only force a smile on their faces. Although they had already apologized to Yuan Zong. But judging from the current situation, Qin Shujian did not seem to intend to let them go. Thinking of this, the 2 of them felt like crying. If they had known that Qin Shujian would grow to such a level one day, they would never have been bewitched by giant spirit and attacked the Traceless sect. However, there was no medicine for regret in this world. The 2 of them only hoped that Qin Shujian could punish them again. As expected, while the 2 of them were trembling with fear, Qin Shujian's voice sounded. The Yinyang sect and the Crimson Heaven sect once stopped the heavenly beings of the human clan from breaking through. Although the 2 sects no longer exist, this matter cannot be forgotten. You must know that any heavenly being is the backbone of the human clan and also the foundation of the human clan. In order to punish them, you 2 need to go to the human clan's territory to guard it for 10 years. After 10 years, you can return to the eastern continent. We obey the orders of the human emperor. The 2 of them were slightly relieved and immediately cupped their hands to accept the order. It was fine to guard the human clan's territory. As long as a war did not break out, there would basically be no problem. And even if a war broke out, there were so many strong cultivators there. It might not be their turn to charge and break through the enemy lines. At most, they would not be able to return to the eastern continent for 10 years. 10 years would pass quickly. They just had to endure it. The two of them comforted themselves. Immediately, Qin Shujian continued, "From today onwards, all Devis will be appointed as elders and overseers of the Holy Land. 100 divine martial cultivators will be appointed as commanders of the heavenly guards. Each commander of the heavenly guards will have 100 heavenly guards under him, and each heavenly guard can command 100 heavenly guards. If there are not enough cultivators above the 7th level of the spirit martial realm, the heavenly guards can lower the standard to the airborne realm. However, all heavenly guards must be at the prominent divine realm. If there are not enough people, they can temporarily leave a vacancy." The 100 heavenly guards commanders were destined to be at the divine martial realm. Under each commander, there were another 100 heavenly guards. In this way, they needed 10,000 cultivators above the 7th level of the spirit martial realm. According to Qin Shujian's estimation, in such a large cultivation world, it wasn't difficult to gather 10,000 cultivators above the 7th level of the spirit martial realm. However, it was still difficult to gather 1,000,000 cultivators like that. However, the standard was lowered from the 7th level of the spirit martial realm to the 4th level of the spirit martial realm. As for those below the 4th level of the spirit martial realm, they didn't have the qualifications to become heavenly guards. From today onwards, everyone here will hand over all the sect's resources to the sacred ground. At the same time, the sacred ground will immediately go to various places to establish schools. Several elders of the sacred ground will supervise and take charge. There can be no delay. Benhuang requests that within half a year, the Qianyuan school will blossom everywhere in the eastern continent. You can do it. We will obey the Qin Emperor's order. Qin Yuanbai and the other heavenly beings all stood up and bowed to accept the order. Qin Shujian slightly nodded, then said, "All divine martial techniques will be safeguarded by the sacred ground. Other people are not allowed to privately teach them. They are also not allowed to be taught to Inhumans or other races. However, those who violate this will be treated as traitors." "We will obey," everyone replied in unison. That point, they didn't have any problems. As for Inhumans, the people here didn't think highly of them. As for them, although Inhumans looked like humans, to a certain extent, they were still different from humans. After all, Inhumans were visitors from outer space. They were fundamentally different from the humans of this world. This meeting is over. All the elders of the sacred ground can choose any side hall in the palace as their residence. In addition, Benhuang also said that the original sects can leave a branch in the Qianyuan realm. They can leave some disciples to live in the Qianyuan realm with their original level. However, the spirit qi in the Qianyuan realm is limited. If you want to get more places, you must make a great contribution or compete for the heaven list. After that, Qin Shujian stood up and disappeared on the spot. In the Qianyuan palace, no one saw how Qin Shujian left. At this time, in the main hall, all the cultivators were silent for a while, then got up and left. They could feel it. The world was going to change. The sects would no longer exist. The sacred ground would be established. Moreover, establishing academies in various places was equivalent to preaching to the world and giving everyone the opportunity to have access to cultivation methods. Such an approach was equivalent to a great reform. A cultivator sighed and said, "We have no problem establishing Qianyuan academies in various places, but will the great Zhao agree?" Some people thought of the imperial court. The establishment of Qianyuan Academy would definitely have a great impact on them. If the imperial court didn't agree, then it would be troublesome. Qin Yuanbai glanced at him and said lightly, "Since Emperor Qin has made this decision, he must have discussed it with Emperor Zhao. Moreover, you can just carry out Emperor Qin's orders. There's no need to talk so much." Elder Qin's words are reasonable. The cultivator's face stiffened. Then he smiled apologetically. He couldn't afford to offend Qin Yuanbai. He couldn't afford to offend him in the past, and he couldn't afford to offend him now. The sacred ground elder and supervisor angel. It could be said that, in the Qianyuan sacred ground, such a status was only slightly lower than that of the human emperor. No one could afford to offend him. Soon, everyone walked out of the Qianyuan palace. Some people left directly. Some people looked for a place to set up a foundation in the Qinyuan realm. Qin Shujian had already said it. Each sect could leave an inheritance in the Qinyuan realm as a guide for the disciples of the sects who would come to the Qinyuan realm in the future. In that case, they naturally had to make a good selection. On the other side, a large number of experts came out of the Qinyuan realm. Everyone's expression was different, compared to the depression in the Qinyuan palace. After coming out of the outside world, everyone felt their bodies loosen up. However, the so-called relaxation was only relative. Thinking of the content of the meeting and the decision made, they shook their heads and smiled bitterly. What meeting? It's clearly an announcement. A cultivator laughed at himself. The meeting sounded nice. However, it was just Qin Shujian's decision. The others had no chance to object at all. No. Seriously speaking, it was still possible to object. However, the price of objection was death. Thinking of the hundreds of experts who were casually killed by Qin Shujian, many people felt a chill in their hearts. It was too ruthless. He killed hundreds of experts without hesitation. It was so ruthless. This caused many people to feel fear. Especially after seeing Qin Shujian's combat strength, they understood that it would not take much effort for him to kill them. At this moment, in Liangshan City, the cultivators of the various sects were gathered here. Because there were requirements, not everyone could enter for the meeting. A group of people from many sects came, but there was only one person who really entered the Qinyuan realm. Why didn't I see my sect master come out? The elder of the Dark Eye sect was stunned. He looked for all the experts who appeared, but he did not find Lu Taixian. In the end, the elder came in front of Qin Yuanbai, cupped his hands and said, "May I ask Sect Master Qin, why didn't my sect master come out?" Right now, he had a bad premonition in the bottom of his heart. Qin Yuanbai glanced at him and said calmly, "Lu Taixian betrayed the human race and was killed by the Qin Emperor." What? The elder's face turned pale, and he almost couldn't stand still. It's impossible. How could my sect master betray the human race? It's impossible. Elder Su, you should understand that the Qin Emperor said that Lu Taixian betrayed the human race, so Lu Taixian betrayed the human race. Fortunately, the Qin Emperor did not vent his anger on your Dark Eye sect. Be content. Qin Yuanbai patted him on the shoulder. Then he corrected him, "By the way, don't call me Sect Master Qin in the future. Please call me Elder Qin." After all, the Nine Palace sect has been merged into the Qinyuan sacred ground. I am just an elder of the sacred ground now. Elder Su was now completely immersed in the sadness of Lu Taishuan's death. When he came to his senses, Qin Yuanbai had already left. Our sect master is dead. What should my Dark Eye sect do? Elder Su was in a daze. However, he soon recalled the phenomenon in the sky and the words that Qin Yuanbai had said. All of a sudden, Elder Su snapped out of his daze. No, it seems that the Dark Eye sect is gone too. Such a blow made his throat roll, and the sweet taste of blood rushed up. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his vision turned black. He fainted on the ground. A meeting. The sect was gone. The Dark Eye sect was gone too. Such a blow was not something that anyone could bear. The Dark Eye sect was not the only one who reacted this way. The sects where the experts who were killed in the main hall belonged to were all stunned, as if they had been struck by lightning when they received the news. No one expected it. How could such a thing happen during a proper meeting? Even more unexpected. In less than a day, the sect was gone. And it was not just one sect that was gone. All the sects in the world were gone. In the cultivation world, only the Qinyuan sacred ground was left. A sacred ground that ruled the cultivation world. Some of the cultivators from the various sects were furious, some were terrified, and some were grief-stricken. Some even felt hatred for Qin Shujian. But, even so, no one dared to jump out and say anything. All the sects in the world had already surrendered. No one dared to disobey the orders of the Qin Emperor. As long as they didn't want to die, they wouldn't do anything impulsive. More importantly, the difference in strength between the two sides was too great. If they really collided with the Qin Emperor, it would be like hitting a stone with an egg. The world has changed. I'm afraid the establishment of the Qinyuan Academy this time will not go smoothly. Feng Xinglan looked at the sky and let out a long sigh. In his opinion, Qin Shujian's tough methods would definitely cause dissatisfaction and even resentment among many cultivators. It might even cause trouble for the Qinyuan sacred ground. However, in the current situation, it seemed that this was the most suitable method. Today's human race doesn't need too many voices. Perhaps only such a human emperor can lead the human race out of the current predicament. Feng Xinglan shook his head with a compassionate look. It was just that with his young face and his current posture, it was strange no matter how one looked at it. P.S. Support the original version. Chidian Chinese Networks, I am decent. Chapter 629. The Qinyuan Realm. The original Yuan sect had already found a mountain as the foundation of the sect. When Qin Shujian arrived, he happened to see Zheng Feng in the martial arts hall, explaining martial arts to some disciples who had entered the main sect. Although there was a limit to the number of people who could enter the Qinyuan sacred ground, but as the Yuan sect founded by Qin Shujian himself, he could still open some back doors. Of course, this back door could not be opened too much, otherwise it would cause dissatisfaction among others. Therefore, Qin Shujian did not invite all the disciples of the Yuan sect. Instead, he only allowed the disciples who were originally in the main sect to enter. Emperor Qin. Seeing Qin Shujian arrive, Zheng Feng immediately stood up and greeted him. As for the other disciples, all of them bowed respectfully. Qin Shujian nodded slightly and said, "Do as you wish. Ben Huang is just here to take a look." After that, he turned around and left, taking a stroll in the mountain peak. As the first batch of cultivators to enter the Qinyuan realm, the location that Zheng Feng and the others had chosen was also good. The mountain peak here was majestic, and it was not inferior to the original Mount Liang. His divine consciousness spread out. Qin Shujian took a step forward and appeared on a flat ground. Although the mountain was high, but it was not steep everywhere. Immediately after, Qin Shujian took out the heaven list and released the courtyard hidden inside. After doing this, he opened the gate of the courtyard and stepped in. Well, it's still comfortable to live in my own courtyard. Looking at the familiar scene in front of him, Qin Shujian smiled slightly. Compared to the Tianyuan Palace, he was more used to it. This was also why. The reason why Qin Shujian didn't stay there was because he had returned here. He sat down on the stone bench. He skillfully brewed a pot of spirit tea for himself. Suddenly, the fragrance spread. There were still many spirit flowers condensed by Mu Yang last time, and each time he brewed it, it did not consume much. Qin Shujian looked at his inventory. It could probably last for a few years. He tasted the spirit tea. He was also thinking about something. He had long planned to establish a sacred ground this time. However, the idea of banning all sects was a temporary one. The Holy Land has already been established, so there's no need for the sect's legacy. On the contrary, as time passes, the sect may come into conflict with the academy established by the Holy Land. Since that's the case, it's more appropriate to cancel the sect. It's just that there's not much time left for the human race. It'll take too long to use conciliatory means to slowly whittle down the human race. It'll be more direct to use such an iron-blooded method to suppress them. Qin Shujian reviewed everything that happened during the meeting. Iron Blood's methods were indeed fast. However, the drawbacks were also very obvious. Not to mention anything else. Just the sects where the fallen powerhouses belonged to already had many people who hated him. These people, who knew what kind of impact it would have on the Holy Land in the future. But this was inevitable, and no one could change it. Qin Shujian could not erase all these hidden dangers just because of a guess. The hardest thing to control was the human heart. The more he killed, the more he killed. There were more and more people who were dissatisfied with the Qinyuan sacred ground. Even if he was obedient on the surface, he was still a huge problem behind the scenes. So, Qin Shujian could only kill the toughest group of people and leave some of the hidden dangers behind. On the surface, he would integrate all the sects and forcefully implement these things. As for the rest, he couldn't care so much anymore. In a few hundred years, the demonic abyss will descend. Now that the cultivation method is fully implemented, this time will become even shorter. It might only be 100 years, or it might not even be 100 years. But now, we can't care about so many years. The demon abyss is a problem, and the other clans are a sharp blade hanging over my head. It won't take 100 years. Maybe in less than 10 years, a true immortal will be born. Once a true immortal is born, the current situation of the human race will be completely destroyed. When the time comes, a war will break out, and no one will be spared. Thinking of this, Qin Shujian also sighed. Although the human race was very stable now, however, it was only an illusory surface. The human race was very stable because of him and Emperor Zhao. If Emperor Zhao couldn't break through to the true immortal realm in the next few years, he would definitely die. Without Emperor Zhao, the deterrence of the human race would be reduced by at least half. And although his current strength was not weak, it was definitely not to the extent that the other clans would not dare to make a move. Even if he raised his strength to the 6th level of the celestial human realm in a few months, in terms of combat strength, he should be about the same as Emperor Zhao. But in front of a true immortal, it was still not enough. The 6th level of the celestial human realm is not enough to turn the situation around. If I want to break through to the 7th level of the celestial human realm, I will need more life source. In total, it will take at least 1.5 to 2 years. In the past, 2 years is very short. But looking at the current situation, 2 years is really hard to say what will happen in 2 years. Qin Shujian also felt a lot of pressure now. In the end, it was because the human race was too weak and had too few experts. Or else, after he broke through to the 6th level of the celestial human realm, he could join forces with Emperor Zhao and take the lead to fight the other clans. Before the other party gave birth to a true immortal, they could destroy all of them. But such an idea was really just a thought. The human race now, they did not have the right to take the lead at all. Other than the 2 human emperors, the human race's strength could not withstand any war at all. Once Qin Shujian and Emperor Zhao were entangled by the experts, the remaining cultivators of the other clans would be enough to destroy the human race. Of course, when that time came, Qin Shujian also felt that he and Emperor Zhao did not have any scruples. The other clans would definitely not be able to withstand the anger of 2 top experts. But this way of doing things was to exchange clans. In the end, no one gained any benefits. On the contrary, because the cultivators of the other clans were all dead, they completely fell into a state of collapse. It's better not to do the exchange. Qin Shujian shook his head slightly. If it really reached the extent of exchanging clans, the human race would almost be destroyed. He did not want to do so. The Demon Emperor and other experts did not want to do so either. So, after the human race had him and Emperor Zhao, although the other clans still had friction with the human race, there were no more large-scale attacks and racial wars. Everyone knew, if they could not deal with the emperor of a clan, even if they killed all the cultivators of that clan, it would be useless. Instead, it was a fearless emperor. For any clan, it was a nightmare. Qin Shujian sat quietly in the courtyard, drinking spirit tea as he pondered over some matters. Now, there are a total of 3 problems in front of the human race. One is the demon abyss, one is the other clans, and the last one is the players. The problem of the demon abyss can be put aside for later. The problem of the other clans is imminent. As for the problem of the players, it's not easy to deal with. Thinking of the players, he rubbed the bridge of his nose and felt a headache, because Qin Shujian would never forget the reward given to him by the heavens and earth after he killed a player. In other words, to heaven and earth, the players were malignant tumors, invaders, and existences like demons. But from the current situation, the players don't seem to be a threat to the human race. Not to mention the players of the other continents. The players of the Eastern continent have been integrated here for many years, and their actions have become stable. Qin Shujian was expressionless, but he was thinking about many things in his mind. Compared to when he first came here, the players were now much more stable. At least, they would not cause trouble randomly. He also learned from the side. The cultivation level improved here was also helpful to the players in reality. It was also because of this The players also cherished their wings and would not easily take risks. But, since heaven and earth gave rewards for killing the players, then to a certain extent, the players are malignant tumors to heaven and earth. Perhaps the problem is still not something that I can understand now. When it came to the level of heaven and earth, Qin Shujian found that he was still far behind. This might be the collision of two worlds, but there might also be other reasons. For him, he could not come into contact with this level of things yet. However, Qin Shujian was clear about one thing. Since heaven and earth thought that the players were malignant tumors and invaders, then it meant that what the players did would definitely have an impact on heaven and earth. It was just this impact. He had not had time to discover it. Or rather, the real impact had yet to come. Qin Shujian's fingers tapped gently on the stone table, and his mind turned again. The main question is, what is the meaning of the player's existence? If it is the collision of two worlds, then the role of the players is the pioneer of that world? But that's not right. If that's the case, the players should have been killing everywhere. How can there be no killing in the invasion? Moreover, players from the eastern continent have arrived, and players from the other three continents have also arrived. In that case, including the eastern continent, players from 4 worlds have come here. From the situation of the players, these 4 worlds should not be connected. At least the players from the eastern continent have no connection with the players from the other continents. If that's the case, then what is the relationship between the 4 worlds of players? Qin Shujian thought of a lot of things at once. He instinctively felt that, although the players did not seem to be of much use now, there was no guarantee that they would give him a vicious stab at any time. This was also the reason. The reason why Qin Shujian would give an order that all the god-level techniques were not to be taught privately. He did not want the players to get the god-level techniques. To be precise, he did not want the players to be able to break through to the celestial level, because the players grew too quickly, and this race would not be limited by any talent. If a player could become a celestial, it meant that more players would become celestials. Compared to that, the human race really did not have any advantage. No matter what, there won't be a problem in suppressing the growth of the players. As long as the players don't wantonly become celestials, then any unexpected situation will still be under control. However, if they control the techniques for a long time, it might cause some players to be dissatisfied and cause unrest among the human race. In that case, the god-level techniques still have to be given out. At least these players have to see a way forward. But how to give it out is up to me. Qin Shujian's lips curled up into a cold smile. He was now the lord of the Holy Land, the emperor of the human race. The techniques of the world were all under control. Unless Qin Shujian allowed it, the players could only get the techniques. Otherwise, with the current situation of the players, they could not get the god-level techniques from the eastern continent. As for whether these players could get the techniques from other places, Qin Shujian was not too worried. To any race, the players were actually aliens, not to mention anything else. Just looking at the situation of the players in the other 3 continents, it was obvious. At least here in the eastern continent, the players were similar to the human race, and they were not discriminated against. But in the other continents, the players were even more miserable. Techniques and martial arts, they were all monopolized by those races. If the players, as aliens, wanted to get these, they had to go through the form of missions and adventures. But the world of the players in the eastern continent doesn't seem to have any cultivators. But there should be powerhouses in the world of the players in the other 3 continents. The techniques of that world should also be brought into this world to cultivate. Otherwise, under such circumstances, how can the players in the other 3 continents grow as fast as the players in the eastern continent? Qin Shujian thought to himself. In the world of the players, although he did not come into contact with it personally, he could understand a lot of things indirectly. In the end, no one allowed the players to not reveal their information. Even if the players did not take the initiative to talk to the locals, they did not necessarily have to ask directly to get information. Sometimes, it was just hearsay. It was enough to deduce a lot of things. Then, Qin Shujian released the Godslayer from his sea of consciousness. Looking at the stone knife in front of him, he said, "Senior can sense the existence of the demon abyss. Can you also sense the world where the aliens are?" This question. Qin Shujian just thought of it. The Godslayer said, "No, I can sense the existence of the demon abyss because the demon abyss was once connected to heaven and earth, and I have also killed a lot of evil spirits, so I can sense it. For the aliens, I can't do anything." I see. Qin Shujian nodded slightly, and then said, "In the outer void, are there other worlds?" "I don't know." The Godslayer replied straightforwardly. This question was beyond the scope of the question. Although he was an ancestral armament, he had never truly entered the outer space before. Thus, he didn't know too much. But looking at the expression on Qin Shujian's face, the Godslayer thought for a moment and said, "There shouldn't be other worlds, because I once heard the human emperor say that the outer void is very big. But there are only two worlds. One is the demon abyss, and the other is the world we are in. Apart from that, there are no other worlds. As for whether it's true or not, this is the human emperor's own speculation, and I don't know. Don't ask me this question. If you really want to be sure, you might as well go to the outer void and explore it yourself in the future." The Godslayer said the last words quickly, as if not giving Qin Shujian a chance to interrupt. Hearing this, Qin Shujian's face was slightly solemn. Originally, he thought, the outer void was vast and boundless, and there should be other worlds. But now, according to the Godslayer, it seemed that there were no other worlds. Then what about the extraterritorial demons and beasts that Senior mentioned? Don't they have their own worlds? I don't think so. Those things were born from the void, and the void is their world. The Godslayer thought for a moment, and then said. Qin Shujian sighed. "Well, thank you for your explanation. There was something." The Godslayer didn't know, and there was no need to ask. Originally, according to Qin Shujian's idea, the world of the players might exist in the outer void, but now it seemed that it really wasn't in the outer void, or it existed in a place far away from the outer void. The outer void. Heaven and earth. Forget it. Let's not think about it. Qin Shujian shook his head and decided not to think about it. After leaving the courtyard, Qin Shujian went to another place and released the library and other things. At the same time, the news of the establishment of the Qianyuan sacred ground had spread throughout the East continent. The world sects no longer existed. The sacred ground was the only one. Not only that, all the cultivation methods in the world had to be handed over to the sacred ground, and finally, the sacred ground would be in charge of them. Regarding this news, some people were happy to see it happen, while others were resentful. They were happy to see it happen. Naturally, it was those rogue cultivators and some cultivators from small sections. For them, they didn't have any cultivation methods themselves, so it was fine to contribute them. Moreover, the sacred ground controlled the cultivation methods in order to preach to the world. In the future, it would be easier for them to obtain powerful cultivation methods. Why wouldn't he do such a thing? As for the dissatisfied cultivators, they were the strong cultivators from the large sections. The cultivation methods of the sects were the inheritance of their ancestors, and they were also their foundation and lifeline. Now that they had to take them all out and hand them over to the sacred ground, they might have to use them for cultivation in the future. They felt like there was a fishbone in their throat, and they felt uncomfortable all over. However, so what if they were unwilling? The emperor had personally given the order, and no one dared to disobey, because those who disobeyed were all dead. The words of the Qianyuan sacred ground were orders that couldn't be disobeyed, unless you wanted to die. Some sects wanted to keep their cultivation methods for themselves. He only contributed a portion of his cultivation techniques and kept some precious cultivation techniques for himself. At this time, the role of the Sky Patrol came into play. They were all Sky Patrol. The commanders of the Sky Patrol who came from sects were fine. They turned a blind eye to these things. But the Sky Patrol who came from independent cultivators, that was different. If they wanted to keep their cultivation methods for themselves, they would be punished as traitors. In just a few days, the cultivation world of the Eastern continent was once again filled with blood and heads rolling. Independent cultivators hated the cultivators of the sections. Now that they had the opportunity, they wouldn't hold back at all. When the strong cultivators of the other sects saw this, they didn't dare to say anything, because behind these Sky Patrol stood the Emperor. TSK, The Sky Patrol is really ruthless. In the past half a month, I heard that they have killed tens of thousands of cultivators. Some sects were even uprooted. They didn't show any mercy. That's right. It seems that the Qinyuan sacred ground is serious this time. I heard that many of the top sects have been killed, let alone the other sections. In the tea house, many cultivators were talking about it. During this time, everyone's topic was related to the Qinyuan sacred ground and the Sky Patrol. The former suppressed the cultivation world. The latter was a bloody executioner. A young cultivator said angrily, "The Qin Emperor is so tyrannical. He doesn't care about the lives of the human race at all. How can he be the emperor?" As soon as he finished speaking, the noisy scene suddenly fell silent. Everyone looked at him strangely, as if they had seen a rare treasure. In front of a large crowd, he dared to insult the Qin Emperor. He was a genius. The young man was being stared at by everyone, and his heart was beating fast. However, he forced himself to be calm on the surface and said loudly, "Can't we discuss the Qin Emperor? A few years ago, he was just a bandit in the Liangshan village. Now that he has become the emperor, can he not treat us as humans? He is the emperor of the human race. If we don't recognize him as the emperor, then he is not the emperor." His voice was a little loud, purely to cover up his panic. The young cultivator also knew that he had said something bad just now, but he was young and impetuous. At this time, it was impossible for him to bow his head and admit his mistake. He could only continue to fight to save face. The others in the tea house heard this. They all had different expressions. At this time, a person walked downstairs. Steady footsteps sounded in the tea house. It was obviously an ordinary footstep, but to others, it sounded as if their hearts were being pressed by something. Not long after, a corner of green clothes appeared in everyone's sight. Green clothes, the Sky Patrol Divine General. For some reason, many people thought of the Sky Sentinel Divine Generals, because green clothes were the uniform of the Sky Patrol Divine General. In the past few days, the Sky Patrol Divine General had been deeply rooted in people's hearts. Even the young cultivator who had been talking loudly just now seemed to be stuck and couldn't say a word. Soon, the person appeared in the sight of others. Dressed in green clothes, he was just a middle-aged man with an ordinary face. Those people were slightly relieved. However, when their eyes fell on the other party's waist, their pupils shrank again. There was a token pin there, a token that belonged to the Qinyuan sacred ground. Suddenly, the atmosphere on the second floor was frighteningly solemn. No one dared to breathe loudly. The middle-aged man in green clothes went upstairs, then slowly walked in front of the young cultivator, and then sat down in the empty seat in front of him. "I heard that someone was dissatisfied with the Qin Emperor. Was it you?" The young cultivator's face was pale. He was just about to open his mouth to defend himself. Bang, his head suddenly exploded, and red and white things splashed on the ground. The headless corpse sat still in his seat, as if he hadn't realized that he was dead. This scene, it made everyone's faces pale, and their legs and stomachs were trembling. Murder. For cultivators, killing people was nothing strange. It was even more impossible to step into the cultivation world without being stained with blood. However, killing people without a word and dying in such an inexplicable way would make people feel terrified. Killing the young cultivator in front of him. For Yang Xiao, it was no different from crushing a person to death. The other party was just a real martial realm cultivator. And he had reached the 9th level of the spiritual martial realm. After killing the other party, Yang Xiao stood up from his seat, looked at the others in the tea house, and said slowly, "Anyone who is disrespectful to the Qin Emperor is a traitor. The Sky Patrol Divine Guards will kill them without mercy. I hope you all take care of yourselves." After that, he turned and went downstairs. It was as if he came here just to kill a person, but in fact, his purpose was that simple. The young master of the Zhang family is still too young. He dares to say anything. The Zhang family is finished. Alas, the Sky Patrol Divine Guards are really ruthless. Some people shook their heads and sighed. However, more people closed their mouths and didn't dare to discuss these things anymore. Who knew if the Sky Patrol Divine Guards around would hear them? After all, The weakest among the Sky Patrol Divine Guards were at the 4th level of the spiritual martial realm and had cultivated to the spirit god realm. Even if they weren't here, they could sense the movements around them. If they talked about the Sky Patrol Divine Guards wantonly, they would just be courting death. As for the Zhang family that the cultivator mentioned, it was a cultivation family with a strong cultivator in the spiritual martial realm. However, in front of the Qinyuan sacred ground, they were just ants that could be destroyed with a wave of the hand. If the Sky Patrol Divine Guards used this as an excuse to make trouble for the Zhang family would definitely be destroyed. A rogue cultivator sneered and said, "In my opinion, it's best for the Sky Patrol Divine Guards to destroy the Zhang family." Over the years, the Zhang family has relied on their strength to bully people. We rogue cultivators have also been forced into a difficult situation. Now that the Qin Emperor has established the Qinyuan sacred ground and the Sky Patrol Divine Guards are monitoring the world, it's a good opportunity to eradicate all these malignant tumors. In my opinion, the Qin Emperor is still a little merciful and didn't kill all the cultivators of those sects and families. For so many years, they have controlled the cultivation methods and resources. Have they ever thought about the difficulties of us rogue cultivators? If it wasn't for this, why would we need to fight so hard for an extremely ordinary cultivation technique? Brother Chen, be careful with your words. Why should I be careful? Do they dare to come and kill me? Now the world has changed. The sects and families no longer exist. Only the Qinyuan sacred ground is left. Do they dare to come and kill me? Brother Chen drank a glass of wine and then shouted loudly. The Qin Emperor has decreed that the cultivators in the world are not allowed to kill at will. Now in the cultivation world, only the Sky Patrol Divine Guards are qualified to kill. No one is qualified to kill. So what if I scold them today? If they have the guts, they can come and kill me. It's worth it if I can exchange my life for the fall of a sect and family. In the past, he didn't dare to be so arrogant. But now, this cultivator was not afraid at all. Killing. In terms of ruthlessness, no one in the world could compare to the Qin Emperor. In his opinion, although the Qin Emperor was ruthless, what he did was very satisfying. Although those sects and families used to be powerful, now in front of the Qinyuan sacred ground, they had to be humble. Someone reminded him, "Brother, don't forget that the Sky Patrol Divine Guards also have people from sects and families. Don't get into trouble." Hey! Brother Chen glanced at the other party and sneered contemptuously. However, he didn't talk much about this matter. He could freely criticize the sects and families, but he couldn't slander the Sky Patrol Divine Guards. Otherwise, no one would say anything even if he was killed. Nowadays, the Sky Patrol Divine Guards could be said to be polarized. The Sky Patrol Divine Guards, composed of rogue cultivators, were the most ruthless to these sects and families. As for the Sky Patrol Divine Guards from sects and families, they were a little different. However, as long as they didn't violate the Qin Emperor's decree and openly oppose the Qinyuan sacred ground, even the Sky Patrol Divine Guards were not qualified to kill people arbitrarily. This was because many cultivators had died during this period. It wasn't just the sects and families that were killed. There were also the Sky Patrol Divine Guards who killed people indiscriminately. It could be said that the current method of the Qinyuan sacred ground was the simplest and most violent. From beginning to end, only a few orders were carried out. Those who disobeyed the sacred ground's decree, kill. Those who slandered the emperor of the sacred ground, kill. Those who disobeyed the law and killed people wantonly, kill. From beginning to end. No matter who you were, if you violated the above 3 rules, you would all be killed. It could be said that, because of the Qinyuan sacred ground and the Sky Patrol Divine Guards, everyone was talking about it. The tea house now was just a condensed shadow. The Sky Patrol Divine Guards purged the world. When all the voices of injustice were suppressed, Li Tianlan's voice was heard. The Qinyuan Academy also began to blossom everywhere. According to Qin Shujian's orders, there was a minimum number of academies in each area, but there was no upper limit. In other words, as long as one had the ability, they could open as many academies as they wanted. However, it was just to satisfy the most basic requirements. They had already exhausted all their manpower and material resources. If they wanted to open more academies, they could only dream about it. After all, in addition to the dean, an academy also needed a large number of teachers. 1 or 2 academies were fine. Now that all the academies in the Eastern continent had opened, there were at least tens of thousands of them. So, 100 teachers in an academy were allocated. This would already require 1,000,000 cultivators. Moreover, as an academy, teachers couldn't be appointed casually. They needed to be assessed. Only those with strength and experience were qualified to be teachers. During this month, the Eastern continent was shaken. Even the imperial court suffered a lot of repercussions. After all, the cultivation world had a close relationship with the imperial court. Many sects and forces even had the imperial court behind them. But the Sky Patrol Divine Guards killed people. It didn't matter who was standing behind them. Anyway, if they disobeyed the orders, they would be killed. For a time, many officials wanted to impeach Qin Shujian, but on second thought, they realized that there was no reason to impeach him at all. First of all, Qin Shujian was not a member of the imperial court. Second of all, he was the human emperor. His status was the same as Emperor Zhao. If they really wanted to impeach a human emperor, they might even be charged with slandering a human emperor. This was not something that could happen. Just because of this, the imperial court had already executed many officials. This time, the others finally understood as well. The reform of the Qinyuan sacred ground wasn't just Qin Shujian's idea alone. Emperor Zhao was also involved. Strictly speaking, this was the joint decision of the 2 human emperors for the human race. In the Qinyuan hall, Qin Shujian sat in the main seat. Below him sat several elders of the sacred ground. How are things going now? He looked at the people below. Qin Shujian said lightly. Now that the sacred ground had just been established, there were many things that he needed to deal with personally. Now was not the time to let go. As soon as he finished speaking, Fang Xinglan cupped his hands and said, "Your Majesty, Qinyuan colleges have been established in all regions of the Eastern continent. The deans and teachers are all in place. However, the problem is that the colleges have not been officially opened because the cultivation methods, martial arts, and various resources are not in place." How many colleges are there in total? 13,576 academies. Fang Xinglan replied without hesitation. Qin Shujian nodded slightly. More than 13,500 colleges, which was similar to what he had expected. But at the same time, with so many colleges, the resources needed to be consumed could be said to be massive. After all, the colleges had just been established. All the resources naturally needed to be allocated from the sacred ground. Only when the students of the colleges grew in the future could they feed back to the colleges and finally return to the sacred ground. But before that, what the sacred ground needed to invest in was a massive amount of resources for the development of these colleges. Qin Shujian said, "More than 13,000 colleges require a lot of resources. Now, have all the resources been handed in?" "Your Majesty, all the resources of the various sects are in place and have been stored in the treasury. What about the cultivation methods and martial arts?" "The same." Qin Yuanbai cupped his hands and said, "In just a short month, everything had been put in place." Needless to say, Qin Shujian also knew that there would definitely be heads rolling in this place. But these things, he didn't care. At this time, those who dared to cause trouble for him were no different from betraying the human clan. So what if they were killed? To put it bluntly, the human clan had no shortage of people. If this batch of people was disobedient, then they would all be killed, leaving only those who recognized the Qinyuan sacred ground and him as the Qin emperor. At that time, after a few years of nurturing, they would be able to start to take shape. In a few more decades, it was almost time for them to return to normal. After all, there was not much strength to speak of in the cultivation world. There were more than 2,000 divine martial artists and 6 heavenly beings. To be honest, if this kind of strength were to spread, it would be mocked by the alien races. All the colleges are conducted according to an assessment system. The graduating students of the Ordinary Realm College can enter the True Realm College. The graduating students of the True Realm College can enter the Spiritual Realm College, and so on. Ben Huang believes that resources should be given priority to the ordinary realm college. Although the strength of the martial initiation realm cultivators is low, they are still one of the foundations of the human clan. All cultivators and experts start at this realm step by step. As for the resources of the colleges in other regions, they can be put aside for later, but they can't be too far behind. Qin Shujian looked at the few of them and said, if the resources handed over by the sects are not enough, then they can be collected from the aristocratic families. After all, as part of the human clan, it is natural for them to contribute at critical moments. I think no one will refuse. Furthermore, the disciples cultivated by the colleges will fight for the human clan in the future. The investment now will also be the return in the future. To put it simply, the resources handed over now were the money to buy lives in the future. If the human clan could not cultivate enough experts, then when the alien races attacked, the aristocratic families would only have a dead end. Qin Yuanbai nodded and said, rest assured, Qin Emperor. I know what to do. At this point, his eyes were a little cold. In any case, the Nine Palaces sect had handed over all the resources, and all the sects in the world were no exception. They had not done anything to the aristocratic families. But now it seemed the Qin Emperor was about to make a move on the aristocratic families. Such an outcome, this was what Qin Yuanbai was happy to see. There was no reason for the aristocratic families to ignore the contributions of the sections. Now, just the matter of collecting resources was enough to make them suffer. As for not giving, Qin Yuanbai sneered in his heart. It was okay if they didn't give. He liked people who disobeyed orders the most. When the time came, the resources would still belong to the sacred ground. Suddenly, Qin Yuanbai liked the current him a little. In the past, he was the sect master of the Nine Palaces sect, but he still had to consider the overall situation. Even if someone disobeyed the orders of the Nine Palaces sect, he could not act recklessly. How could it be like now? Those who disobeyed, just kill them. This method was simple and crude, but it was also extremely carefree, which made Qin Yuanbai a little addicted to it. After all the elders left, Qin Shujian also walked out of the Qinyuan Hall and headed towards the treasury. Inside the many side halls, the treasury was in one of the side halls. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.